Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Command Zone. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And joining us in the studio today, we've got a very special guest. Wait, make that two guests. Introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Brendan Halloran. I'm on a show called Space Janitors that is on the Geek and Sundry YouTube network.
And I'm Andy Hull, and I am also featured on that same show.
On that particular program.
Oh,
and you guys also write on the show, right? Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so we write on it. Me and Andy write with two other people, and then I'm in it. I play one of the janitors of the Space Janitors, and
I play your dad.
You play the puppet version of my dad. Yeah.
Is that
The
affect
puppet version of your dad?
Well, you know, in the show, Brendan's dad is a fish man.
He's a fish puppet.
Yeah.
You'll have to watch
That's
to find
me.
out more
Exactly.
clearly.
Please, stay tuned.
Do you guys want to explain what the concept of the show is?
Oh, yeah, it's super simple. You can explain it in literally 2 seconds. We are janitors on a Death Star-like station.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's kind of like the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah,
right?
we're
Yes.
never involved in any of the cool main battles. It's that we're always involved in petty squabbles over our really crappy lives.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely like the behind-the-scenes look at life on a giant death station.
It's really funny. If you guys haven't checked it out or heard of it, or if you have and for some reason you haven't watched all the episodes, which
Go watch them all. Watch
doesn't
the rest
actually
of them.
make any sense. Because if you watch one, I was like that. I was like, oh, I'll watch a couple of these. And then before I knew it, I just didn't work for 2 days and I just watched all of them.
Yep, you gotta just, once you start, you
Wow, we owe you some money, man.
Dude, go to work.
it's okay, Josh.
No,
also,
no, I was at work.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. I see what's going on here.
It's the classic two birds with one stone. And you guys are on the podcast because you guys contacted us over Twitter, and turns out you guys are also EDH/Commander players. And so we had a couple of game nights, and it was quite fun to play against you guys. It was really cool meshing our metas together for a brief moment.
Absolutely. Is this the first time you guys have had fans of your show on your show? Because
essentially,
most of our playgroup
Essentially,
now,
that's
we
what
are
this
Command
is.
Zone listeners. Like we listen to the Command
Well,
Zone.
that's really cool because I was going to say, is it because we're fans of your show?
Yeah, there you go.
Does that mean we get to be on the Space Janitors next?
You know what? It does.
It does.
We have
Absolutely.
we have the go ahead, and we're going to say it. Yes, you can guarantee Josh Lee Kwai, Jimmy Wong on Space Janitors.
I somehow think Jimmy is worth a little bit more in that equation than I am.
Yes, guys, I'm afraid this price may be a little too steep. You're gonna need to pay
turned
me. You're gonna need to pay me with a couple alliances in the next game we play. just a couple small
Here we
things.
go.
Whatever. You'll take $100 a day.
Yeah,
And you'll like it.
I'll
Actual
take
rules.
it. Do I get food?
Oh, yeah. The food on set is actually the
I'll
best
be
part
there
of doing the
until
show.
the food runs out.
It's
Yeah.
amazing, actually. The
Yeah.
one thing that's like the greatest.
Yeah, that's true. The food, the craft on Space Janitors is unreal for some reason. Like I've been on movies and TV shows, and so is Brendan, and like we always say, nothing compares to for some reason, the food on Space Janitors.
Well, now I'm
That's
super
great.
excited.
You need
Yeah.
to tell me what company you guys hired so I can hire them myself for the next thing I do. Oh my gosh.
You just
Go-
need to tell me where set is so I can just show up.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not hiring any companies.
Yeah, Josh will walk in with like a walkie in one hand
And a
just-
backpack.
Yeah. Arms crossed, sunglasses, pretend like he's like doing something, and just you see him sneaking baguettes into his
Yeah.
backpack.
I'll be like, look, Darth Vader. Everyone turns.
Everyone will
Where'd the
turn.
food go?
If you say
could've
that,
s-
everyone will turn.
Yeah, it's like I could have swore we had like 1,000 starbursts a second ago.
So actually, we're going to do something we've never done before. We have a clip from the show.
No way, get out of here.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that
So-
sounds great.
Everybody can get a little taste. And then probably what will happen, I'm assuming, is they will then pause our show, go watch all of the episodes of Space Janitors,
And then
and
come back.
hopefully come back.
Hey, Mike. You ever notice when the rebels come on board, they never shoot at us?
Yeah, it's the best.
They can at least acknowledge that we're here.
What, by blasting us?
No. Little eye contact would be nice. Maybe shoot at us and miss.
You know, I think the Squall Troopers actually came closer to hitting us.
The rebels treat us like we're insignificant, but they don't even know who we are. We could be important Imperial guys.
Yeah, but it's Janitor right here, though, right?
The point is, they don't know we're the true keepers of the station. We technically have access to every room on board. We tune the hyperdrive, we maintain the giant laser.
Clean the barf out of the flight simulator, keep the urinal cake stacked.
Yeah, for now. But I'm going somewhere. And someday, I'm gonna be somebody someone's gonna want to shoot at.
Hey, if it's any consolation, I think you already should be shot.
Thanks, man.
That was not a compliment.
So should we prepare a conversation for them by the time they hit play on this again? Like, and they've grown out like 2 days of facial hair?
Yeah.
Or we should just prepare like a razor and some.
Our episodes are 8 minutes long,
Yeah.
everyone. So you'll be back.
There's
through
how,
it in a cool
there's how many
45
seasons
minutes.
now?
Yeah.
There's 4, I think?
3 seasons.
Three
seasons.
seasons.
Three
I'm wanting a
seasons.
4th then.
Yeah.
Because that's the one that we're going to be.
That's the one.
Exactly.
When I said it took me 2 days, that's like I was drinking a lot of water and going to the restroom in between like every
Yeah.
episode. So,
Yeah.
You slept and you had a life. Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah.
Lunch
Yeah.
Fourth
breaks
season
were
is
had.
just
That's actually
everyone
false.
sitting down and playing EDH. That's it.
That would be cool. I mean, I'm sure you guys have ideas on who each of the who's the commander that Darth Vader would play. What is his dude?
I've actually never thought of that.
I love
never
this
thought of
question
that
because we
either.
asked it in our last week's episode about famous people you'd like to play commander with, and like Einstein came up, and it was like.
So now we got fictional characters. Obnixilis,
Oh, okay.
I like that too. yeah.
Unshackled.
No
Unshackled.
searching. The new one? Yeah.
No
I like
searching,
that.
and if you do, you just he just chokes you out, man.
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
a good call. Yeah. I like Lim Duel, the necromancer.
Ooh.
Blue black. I think Vader would be blue
I think
black.
he's
but
just the Lim
No, he's
Duel.
just black.
Just black.
just
yeah.
black. Oh, right, that one
He-
is. You're
if
right.
something
You're right.
dies, he can
Yeah,
get
it's
it
3
back.
and 2 black, I think. I was gonna say like he has to have red in him, but I guess that would be the younger version of himself. Had the rage.
No, Darth Maul's red.
Darth Maul is definitely red. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Darth
would
Maul's
say.
black.
No, I'd say Darth
like,
Maul's like a green,
black and
white tokens
Rakdos.
kind of guy.
really like a populate kind of guy.
Yeah, I think he.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so let's.
Let's move on to the show. We have a good show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about, I mentioned it earlier, combining metagames. So that is going to be our main topic and sort of what happens when you get two groups playing together, or just differences between playgroups, because there's a lot of playgroups out there. You can go to your local game store and play with someone else and just have a completely different experience. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Dragons of Tarkir, we've had some questions. We want to spoil everything, but we record the show a week before we release it, usually like 4 or 5 days. And so we're not going to get to that until our next episode. And do you know
Yeah,
what
a
date
lot of
that
people have
is?
been asking us for the review and when it's going to happen, and it's actually going to happen the week after pre-release, so it'll be 1 week after this show. Just logistically, that's just the way we have to do it. Otherwise, we'd have to sort of do half of it and then half of it later, and
Yeah.
then it'll just get annoying.
it
Anyway,
would suck
just
to-
listen to the limited resources because you don't need the EDH review for the pre-release. You need the limited
Yeah, exactly.
resources review. So
Yeah, you're
plus
not
you
gonna-
need about 8 hours to get through that. So
It's like
Oh, yeah,
it's like
easily.
spending 2 days watching all of Space Janitors. It really takes that long.
Yeah, you can maybe do both at the same time. Who knows?
And just absorb none of it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just consuming so much content that your brain just shuts off, and by the end, you think you're a little smarter, hopefully.
and then we're going to talk about Brendan's actually commander deck, which is Xenagos, God of Revel. So the second half of the show will be a breakdown of that commander.
Xenagod.
Yeah, we haven't done one of the gods. Oh no, we did. We did
did, you did
Crewfix.
Crewfix.
Yeah,
Crewfix,
you
yeah.
did. Look at that, Andy calling me on it.
I know, right? I knew right away.
Wow, what
True
a
fan of the show. You know what, Josh?
Wow.
I
God,
don't
so
think-
We're gonna
embarrassing.
have to be on our A game. Usually, I don't get called out for the mistakes I made until Twitter the day after the show
Yeah.
came out. I'm
And
not
they're
used
like-
to like during the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, but remember in episode 12 you said that wasn't very good?
I feel like the question I get every time is like, "Do you actually know how Trample works?" And I'm like, "No, I don't."
My bad. I'm not a judge.
Sorry, guys.
Couple of things really quick. One, I want to shout out a couple of our listeners. 3 of them actually.
Woo.
Emma, Audrey, and Nora, who
Yes.
are the daughters of Mike Murphy. They live in Burnsville, Minnesota, and I understand that they listen to us on their drive to school. So,
Yeah, which is great.
Hi,
So,
girls.
Hopefully, you guys are cheering in your car right now. Mike, we answered one of Mike's questions last week, so thank you for the question. And also, I'd like to note that Emma plays an Angels deck. Audrey is all about mono red burn. Yo, fist bump, Audrey. And Nora is a green machine.
Audrey's like your soulmate almost.
Yeah, in terms of deck building,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Mono
Yeah.
red burn, she knows what's going on. That's what I did when I first played.
Audrey must be really at home living in Burnsville, Minnesota.
That is actually true.
That's crazy. I love that.
She is Vorthosy. She's
Yeah.
seriously Vorthosy.
Yeah,
really
you
works.
sisters should take a look at what Audrey's doing and take some notes, guys. Come on.
And girls, pay attention to the mail in the next few days because there might be something in there for you when your dad gets his prizes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
A massive bill.
Pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, the power
exactly.
bill's in.
And I wanted to touch on something else really quick before we get into the main topic. GP Vegas. GP Vegas is going to be May 28th through the 31st.
But where is it going to be held?
It's going to be held in Las Vegas.
It's going to be held in Toledo, Ohio. For some reason, we're calling it Grand Prix.
We're taking it to Burnsville, guys.
So we've had a lot of contact with our listeners recently. I wanted to talk about this really quick because I want everybody to know that Jimmy and I will be there.
Oh yeah.
Also, our sister podcast, the guys from the Masters of Modern, Alex and Ben, they're planning on be there.
Craig Blanchett.
Our friend Craig's going to be there. A whole bunch of Magic personalities will be there, but it'll be a good chance. A lot of people have been like, "Oh, I'd love to play EDH with you guys if you're ever going to be at a GP in our area or an event." Well, this is going to be a place where you can come find us and we can have some EDH throwdowns.
Yeah.
Maybe do some conspiracy drafts. Modern Masters 2 is going to be out. We're thinking about a big
combination draft.
Yeah, a big combo.
Man.
Modern Masters 2 conspiracy draft. Andy, Brendan, I'm trying to talk them into coming.
It's a brief, it's 4 hours away. You can make it.
4 hours away and only 4 days of straight of playing Magic.
Yeah, exactly. Does it sound awesome?
Yeah, it's a man vacation. It's great.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, Andy just has to fly from Toronto.
That's right. That's all.
Right.
Simple flight back. Yeah. I'm only here visiting.
great-
Brendan lives here at least.
We're trying to talk you into moving here too.
Yes.
And the weather's actually doing most of the talking.
Dude, yeah, exactly. The talking's being done for you by Mother Nature.
Anyway, so that's going to be a great place to come hang out with a bunch of Magic personalities, including us. I would encourage you, if you can make it out, to check it out. And it's a couple months out, so I said out a lot. That's what happened there.
Get out there, play to your outs, and
Let me tell you something. If you're going to play EDH against these guys at GP Vegas, bring your good decks. These guys have killer decks, man. Be
Don't
on
bring
your
the one that
game.
you're just like, I threw this together last night. We'll see what it does.
No.
You're giving us
maybe
a
I'll
bad-
bring that deck.
Do you guys want to talk about this? This will lead us into like how you got into EDH specifically, because I understand that you started out drafting mostly,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then so what sort of happened to get you into this format?
Well,
You pulled a Xenagos.
this format, I literally, I looked it up on the internet. And I had heard of this sort of format called Commander or something, and I had a 60 card not standard Trostani deck because I just started out and I pulled that in a draft.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, this Commander thing, like it's all sort of themed. It's very theme based. That works out really well. So I put one together. I put a Trostani Commander EDH, all Return of Ravnica cards because that's kind of when I started playing.
Fortunately
And,
for you, there's a
you
lot
build it from
of populating tokens in that.
there's a
set,
ton. There was
so-
enough to
True.
make an EDH
Yeah.
deck out of. Like honestly, it was.
You build it from scratch or first
From scratch.
That's pretty
straight
impressive.
from scratch.
Actually.
I picked up. I eventually, maybe even just a day or two later, went and grabbed a couple extra cards for it and stuff. But really, I just kind of had a bunch of stuff from drafting and built this deck and convinced our other friend Butler to also do the same thing. And then him and I would play back and forth, and then it just spread. Our play group just grew, and once we had something to do with our drafted cards, people were more into spending money on Magic for some reason. Like that
Right, it's
was
more fun to draft if you know you're
Right.
going to take those cards and you'll be able to turn it
Yeah.
into.
Yeah, because and then Andy got me into it because he came up and he was like, "Hey, there's this format where we can take all of our drafted cards and you can put them into a deck." And he's like, "And the thing is that commons will be good in this." and I was like, "Oh, that sounds awesome because I have a lot of commons and these commons are kind of worthless, but now they're good." And that lasted for 2 weeks.
Yeah, maximum 2 weeks.
Andy
People
lied.
say that
Andy
stuff.
And I was
lied.
like, Andy, my commons aren't really good in this. You
Yeah.
guys keep buying cards and
Yeah, buddy, you got to keep up.
And by then you're too far into it.
too far into it. And
If
then
you ever
gotta
wanted to know
double
what an
down.
arms race felt like, guess what? That's
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then all of a sudden it's just like, well, I got to go home and research because my Wednesday nights are awful.
And that's what and honestly, that's what happened. We had this kind of smallish play group of EDH guys. It was about 3 of us. And one night, a new guy came, and he was from Calgary, and he had played with some of the guys who started the format, some of the Canadian guys, because I know there's some guys in Alaska and there's some guys in Calgary. Anyways, he worked at a store and he played with these guys a lot, and he was pulling out Super Friends decks and
right.
tricked out
And you have your
insane
all from
decks.
one
I know,
block deck.
I know.
Deck has spinner rims. You're like, how is that even possible?
I'm playing with a tricycle, you know what I mean? I had my Simic evolving deck, and it was I just got trampled. Of course, all of us did, and then we were like, well, if Nick's in this play group, we got to tune up. So we had to go out and buy a bunch of cards.
It's pretty common. That's what happens is like one person in the playgroup will sort of push the playgroup.
Yeah.
Somebody else might
Yes,
be.
one person ruins it for everyone else.
I've seen the look on your guys' faces when you're playing. I don't think he ruined it.
Not at all.
Yeah, you guys seem like willing participants.
Push the envelope. Just
Opened
a
the door
little
for
bit.
us, really.
Yeah, we are all adults with disposable incomes. And by disposable, I mean we're buying cardboard.
And by disposable, I mean I dispose of it and then I don't have any.
Yeah.
No, the cards have value, Josh. They retain
Investment.
it.
This is all an investment.
That's what we tell ourselves.
And your mom's just shaking her head from wherever she is in the world, being like, sure, investment, whatever you say.
This is my child's college fund.
That
So
would
this
be
fictional
hilarious.
child's college fund.
Yeah.
This cool thing happened. I think that happens quite often when you have a play group and you play mostly with your play group, and then you find somebody else who also plays and they have their play group. And what happens is all of a sudden you're like, well, you should come play with us, or they ask you to come play with them. And this really cool thing happens where all of a sudden it's like you're in this alternate universe. It's like, you know, the rules of the game, but metas between playgroups can be like, they can be crazy different.
Vastly different,
absolutely.
yeah.
They can be insanely different. And so, you know, this is a way to really improve actually at the game is it's just like a job or something. You know, if you've been in the same job for 20 years and then you go to a new job, it's like all of a sudden, even if it's similar, it's just a new place thinks a different way, does things a different way, and all of a sudden you feel like you were narrow.
Yeah.
Whereas if you worked at like 5 jobs over 4 years at different places, you know, first of all, you're doing something wrong because you're getting fired a lot, but also
Or you're just quitting a bunch.
you just know a lot of different ways to, you know, solve problems or think different ways around things because you've been exposed to like, at this place they thought this way, and this other place they think this way, and now I come in contact with a problem and I have 2 ways to tackle it, right?
Right.
So it's very similar to that. I really like mixing play groups. I really like going and playing with other play groups. Something Jimmy and I have been doing a lot recently, and it was really nice to have you guys come in because honestly I learned a lot from that too. We'll get into that. But this is a way to sort of not stagnate, because if you're with 5 or 6 of the same people playing all the time, only them, it can get really insulated and it can get really...
Oh, yeah. Super meta, super specific. You
Yeah.
know, these guys all have, you know, graveyard decks, so like half your deck is graveyard hate. And it's like,
Right,
you can't
exactly.
bring that to another play group. It's just not going to work, you know?
Well, yeah, because they might not have any graveyard synergy, and all of a sudden, like half of your answers are like, "Whoa, I don't even need this card. This
Yeah.
card does nothing." Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good just to see, and then you're going to take something from that playgroup that you just played against, and be like, "Oh, they're doing this." Bring it back to your playgroup, and all of a sudden, like your playgroup's like, "Mind blown! What you can
Yeah.
do that?"
Yeah, absolutely.
You know. So
yeah.
You
that's-
can attack with creatures? What?
What? Traditional damage to death. One of the things I thought was really interesting when I played was we see a lot of deck lists, and like people are like, "Can I see your deck list?" I'm like, "Sure," but that like I think a deck list is really not a deck if you think about it, because it requires you to play against it. And you don't see a lot of the synergies when they're listed out by creatures, spell, enchantment, because each of those cards, like, if you had to draw lines in between each of them, it would just be this huge mesh of stuff, and it's hard to understand unless you play against a certain deck. So playing against you guys was great because I was able to see like Xenagos like really go off in a way that I wouldn't have been able to visualize if I just saw like 5 separate cards on the screen. It really helps a lot to play against the deck, because when you see a card actually played against you and you watch the interaction happen, it kind of opens up your horizons.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I love it when you have a deck and you're like, oh, this is a 2-card combo, or like not infinite necessarily, but like this is a 2-card combo that works. Oh, and this one also works with this, and it also works into these 3 cards together, and then that's like building that spider web of a deck is my favorite.
Spiderweb's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think when you're building synergy within your deck, you want that spiderweb, right? It's like when there's only 2 interactions and then you put a third one in there, it's just not strong enough to hold anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you keep crisscrossing that spiderweb, and now it can really hold, you know, your deck, and it can really hold the amount of power you need to like win games. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, it gives you
it's a
that
good way to put it.
flexibility. So it's like if you're not drawing the things that you need to see, you at least have a different side strategy or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is like a lot of decks, not every deck, but they're gonna want they're gonna want a main way to win, and then maybe 1 or 2 other ways that they could win if the bad thing happens and they tuck your general, or they
Graveyard hate or
exile
whatever.
that one card that you really need, or
Yeah.
you know, or they put out the 1 enchantment that just shuts down your deck. So, yeah, one of the things just to get it started that I noticed immediately when you guys sat down that was different than our playgroup, and our playgroup maybe wasn't used to, is you were using the gods.
Yep.
You know, Andy, you had an Afara deck.
Yeah.
And Brendan, you played the Xenagos deck a couple times. And, you know, I think one of the advantages of the way you guys came into the game, which is through draft, kind of recently in the last couple of years, your decks both seem to embrace the newer cards maybe faster than our group had. Our group had been playing for a little while, and so when new cards come in, you take a couple of them.
Sure.
But you're naturally were sort of motivated to use a lot more of the new cards, and so not just the gods, but a few of the other cards. I was like, man, I should have thought of using that card, but I sort of wrote it off and never looked at it again. And because you were sort of, that was your card pool. So I thought that was interesting. It was pretty, there were some advantages to be gained. The gods themselves are just, if you're not ready for them, they're very hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it comes from like my decks come from the fact that I'm constantly building them and I can't stop.
I feel you, brother.
I'm
One's
always
done, on to the next, kind of.
Like if a set doesn't have good commander legendary creatures in it, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really care though, because and honestly, this Khans of Tarkir,
oh my gosh,
had some really great ones, right? Like really cool ones. But here's the thing, like they're good, they're 3-color, they're generals, but like they're not necessarily super strong on their own, right? Like Anafenza is great against...
Except Narset.
Yeah, and Narset is the one I was like, okay, maybe I'll do Narset.
I think
I'll do that.
It really just takes one more to hexproof, and your power level in EDH jumps like
exactly
4 notches.
And you have so many options with her too. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. I like that. But like Sidisi is like, okay, it's a graveyard style deck, but it's spitting out a couple tokens. I mean, you can amplify that ability to make it very good, but like on its own. So I was looking for something like really broken and bonkers, and I didn't find it, but I still have Sidisi, and I still have. I'm working on a Narset.
I'm looking forward to building a Sidisi / Tysiger deck because I've never built in those colors. So what I really liked about these sets specifically is that I think like one for Vorthos and for storytelling, like have more legendary creatures because they're going to be the protagonists or the antagonists of your story or whatever. And Wizards is themselves a great service, I think, because it's also like, look, now you're also opening up more 3-color combinations. You're giving them names for every EDH player out there that looks at a legendary creature and immediately ticks it up a little bit more in their book because it says a legend or whatever next to it.
Definitely. So yeah, like I'm always on the lookout for that, and I tend to, because we draft a fair amount. We're lucky. We have like a group of 8 or 9 guys who we can usually get about 6 of them together and draft. You guys seem to have the same thing going on here. Like, not everyone has that, right? So we're lucky to have that, and so we draft a decent amount and try and actively use those. We'll go buy singles also, of course, but I think we have more room for those kinds of cards. I have the other decks that I've tried to really tune up, and I'm always looking to put a new card in, and then I'm just like, yeah, but it's just not good enough, right? And that happens, right? Like that happens.
Yeah, and building through the draft, it forces you to be a little bit more creative too, and it forces you to think about cards in a different way. Like I only have a Xenagos deck because I drafted a Xenagos, and I was like, well, I guess technically I could make a deck of this,
right?
And then just mashed a whole bunch of things together because I don't really want to go out and spend $100 on cards if I don't have to,
right?
So a lot of it just comes through of just like, okay, well, I drafted these things, now I need to offset some of the stuff that's terrible in here, but then hopefully you can get it up to speed there.
Yeah. Well, and Xenagos is one of those generals, I think, looking at your deck, and it was very powerful when we played. It's not expensive to build that deck at all. So this is going to be a good episode when we break down that deck for people that don't want to spend a ton of money, which I think is most people. Nobody wants to just go out and drop $600 to build a deck from scratch. So it's nice to just go out and like you need Xenagos and maybe like $50, and this deck will be able to stand toe to toe with most things out there. Yeah. Which is great. And that's a great thing about our format is like, we've said this many times, and we get a lot of emails from people saying, oh, I've got a friend in my playgroup and he just outspends everybody, and how do we beat him? And it's like, I'm like, listen, if you just see the amount of dollar signs that they spend and think that they're automatically winning, like you're doing it wrong. Right. There's a lot of cards for our format that are very inexpensive that do the things you need to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And specifically deal with the cards that cost much more than the ones
almost every card that deals with a card, the card dealing with it is 1/10 the price of the card it's dealing with. So
right, and plus the fact that you're largely playing in like a group setting too. If one guy's going off, then 3 other people are going to be like, well, we'll all team up and stop him.
Yeah.
So
right.
Just necessarily having the most overpowered deck doesn't mean you're even going to win because everyone's out for you.
Because it's a self-policing format, we like to say. And, that's an interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that up because another big difference I saw when we played was politics. Like we're super political.
Yeah,
Our
you
group,
guys, yeah.
our
We're
group,
rolling dice to see who gets hit first. Just like keep
we're
it even
just
until
we,
you die.
we just talk the whole time. We're always trying to convince at least I don't think there's
And I will say this about you, Josh. You are one of the finest talkers that I
Yeah.
have seen in a game of Magic.
No question.
Because I had my move all in my head, and then all of a sudden you started talking to me, and I was like, "Is this guy like putting a spell on me or something?" And now I don't know that I want to do that. Maybe I do want to attack Jimmy. You know, I don't know.
yeah, and then all of a sudden I'm dead.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Josh
no.
is sitting there like, that was a good idea. As he flicks through his cards, I'm like, oh, come on.
You are so good at convincing people that, and it's almost like I'm like you're intense about it during the game, and I'm like, oh man, Josh just want me to attack him. I'm like, okay, I guess I won't. Like, oh man, like, but then after it's like, yeah, great move, man. It's like, oh wow, I
got played like a fiddle.
Yeah, I
there,
got
man.
played. I keep getting played by these guys. Back home, it's like we get 4 or 5 guys sitting around. It's like, well, you're doing the best right now, so I'm going to attack you. And everyone's like, fair enough, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's a lot more
no,
like
we're not like that.
not
at
like
all.
that here.
There's
It's
a
much
lot
more
more
convoluted.
hate in our group too. There's a lot more just like I'm coming after you. I hate you so much.
I hate you.
Everything you got. Yeah.
You got to mitigate that hate. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that'll happen occasionally in our group. I feel like everyone is always so invested in the idea that a few words could get them out of a loss that it's like, all right, great, I'm gonna launch a presidential campaign so I don't die right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt that we're in LA. Everybody's like dabbled in acting or improv
Yeah,
or
or
something,
entertainment
so
of
every
some
person
sort.
thinks that they're like charismatic enough to, and as a result, they are.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and
I don't know,
I love the idea that you're gonna go back to your playgroup now and you're gonna use all these tricks that you've seen because that will spread it to them. They'll start doing it, and like the politics of EDH is really what puts it in the level of like awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just sitting there playing your cards is great. But when you're like playing the people and like literally trying to Jedi mind trick people into doing the things that you need them to do, like that's where the game, it sort of takes on like live action role playing a little bit.
It's weird because I honestly think the way our playgroup has evolved with the politics side of things directly has to do with us playing the Battlestar Galactica board game.
Oh, that is an amazing
The
comparison.
finest board game there is.
Finest board game there is.
There's
It's all
so much
politics.
politicking in
It's
there,
all trying to convince people
Deception.
you're helping when you're not, that
not
kind
a
of thing.
Cylon.
So it honestly though, it's gotten to the point with us where we're all very good at this game now. We all know each other's ticks and we all know each other's spiels. That it's like I'll try and talk to Scott about something. He'll be like, "Don't even bother. I know exactly what you're going to say, and you don't even need to say anything." You know what I mean?
I know how you play.
Yeah,
You guys should try Resistance if you've never played that.
yeah. I have that.
Oh, nice.
I have Resistance, so we have played that.
Resistance is a
Resistance
riot
is like
as well.
the 15-minute Battlestar Galactica. Like if you don't have 4 hours to commit to a Battlestar game.
Yeah. Well, when I was first learning to play Magic, my playgroup, I mean, they didn't have games like Resistance and stuff then, but we played Mafia all the time because you need a board game. And that's, I think, where it comes from is like at that same time, we were playing both those games like all the time. And so it was just natural for like Mafia to sort of, we didn't have Commander at the time either. We would just play with 60 card decks, but with 5 guys. You know?
Really? You played multiplayer with 60?
Yeah, it was just free for all.
Oh,
But
really?
with
Yeah.
60 card decks, because we didn't know. There was no Commander. I don't even know if Legends was even out yet. So there might not have been any legendary creatures. But
back in the day.
yeah, I mean, the format obviously didn't exist, but we were still playing multiplayer, and the political aspect was really, something we latched onto from an early point, and it's super fun.
I'm just a big advocate of the I'm going to call it the custom Josh Lee Kwai move, which is man, things aren't going so good right now for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It seems like you got a lot of stuff out there.
It's like, no, it's just like,
If you could see what I see back here.
you like wave the cards in front of their face. They're like, I don't know. I think you won the game. You're like, nah, I don't know.
You know what though?
This combo's only infinite.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier to do that though when you're playing against new people. Like when we played the first night we played Commander, we'd never seen. Not only are your decks different from the commanders that they have, right? Like I'm thinking specifically the
Chromat?
Riku and the
Oh,
Chromat,
right, Riku
right?
and Chromat. Yeah, every one of Josh's decks is never represented by the commander specifically.
And your Anafenza too, to an extent, right? Like, so we're seeing these commanders and we're like, okay, I guess I can know what to expect from there. But then it's different,
Right.
And on top of that, it's like you don't know anyone's commander deck anyways when you sit down with them if you've
For
never
the
played
first
them
time,
before.
yeah.
So it's like you're putting out 2 out of 3 pieces of an infinite combo that's going to destroy everyone. But like we're like, okay, well, I'm not really familiar with those cards, so yeah, okay, they look fine to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then,
What's that one doing?
Yes,
that
carry
doesn't
on,
seem
carry
bad.
on.
Yeah.
it just does this, you know,
Yeah.
and we're like, oh yeah, okay, fine. And I know because I've done that move exactly. I've done that move so many times. Just like, oh, this guy, he just tabs for whatever.
Well, I gotta
So-
say, like, yeah, we're of course licking our chops when you guys sit down because I'm like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, they
big
don't,
time.
they have no idea, so I
Yeah,
can just
yeah.
convince them of anything,
Yeah.
because they don't
And
know.
at the same time, we're sitting down there too, and I'm doing things that, like, if we were in our other play group, I was just like, oh, I would never be able to do this. Someone
Yeah.
would stop me,
Yeah.
surely, for
Immediately,
doing
yeah.
this. But then you're just like, okay, well, went through. And like, you're like, what?
Yeah, the
Wait a
first
minute.
time you like threw down the axe and someone died, it was like, oh, we should probably deal with this now. But
right.
it's like too little, too late, boys.
little, too
Here
late.
comes Xenagos.
Oh, but you also, like, I got off to a hot start in that first game. I was like, things are going very well for
Yeah.
me. And then all of a sudden it comes around to Jimmy, and he just looks down, fills with his cards for a little second, then he looks up to me, and he goes, well, you're dead. And I was like, but how?
yeah, he's like, I'm sorry, I have to kill you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you were literally gonna kill everyone.
Yeah.
So
or more specifically me. And it put me in a really tough position because I was like, well, if I don't kill him, he's going to kill me. If I do kill him, everyone else is going to kill me because now I'm
when
tapped
you're
out.
when you're playing with new people and that deck is very much in a, like, even if you have nothing else on the board, it can just do 20 damage to you if you can't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then you almost have to kill that guy because you don't know him well enough to know which person he's going to attack.
Yeah.
So you don't know when you're safe or not. So it's like, well, I nobody else that I know right now can just kill me out of nowhere except that deck, so I have to. So I think that kind of hurt you that time. Although I think you'd hit him for like 30 damage already.
Yeah, I was already
No,
on the brink
I was
of
the victim,
death.
everyone. I was the victim.
You're just throwing haymakers. That's all Xenagos does.
Speaking of that deck specifically, one of the things that was very different was the speed of each other's decks. And your Xenagos deck was all about ramping and getting out lethal very quickly. And I think that's one thing that is definitely going to always be the one factor that goes up or down based on whether or not, like, a different play group, because everyone is used to, like, oh yeah, turn 4 kills are just normal, or like, oh no, we wait until turn 9 because everyone's trying to do some more crazy dirtly stuff. But that is going to be, I think, the biggest difference, and that's sort of like the defining factor of what makes, like, Legacy so competitive, because it's like you have to have creatures that are below 3 CMC, otherwise they're just unrealistically not castable because you might just die before then. So it's interesting with EDH. I found that your deck was nice. It was sort of right in the middle where everyone's still getting their stuff out. They're happy to get it out. And the one thing that's going to stop them is something that can trample and just murder them in the face. Because
Yeah.
that's the big thing that your deck is able to just sort of cleave someone in half.
Yeah, and if it's going very well, it happens, fairly quickly. But still, it takes a lot. There's a lot of lands and things that need to come out first.
Yeah, I feel like it needs to go in the right order.
Yeah.
Very much so for that deck. But overall, it's pretty fast, right? Like,
And I built it as a response to, A, because I had it, but then B, also because, like, in our play group, I was noticing that things were starting to slow down more. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, the longer these games go on, I'm not winning as much. So what if I just built something that was, like, had to be dealt with now?
Yeah.
That's a really smart thing, is to attack your meta that way, and I think people can learn a lot from that idea. And on the other side of that, sometimes a meta is really fast, and you can be like, okay, well, I'm not going to win with a fast deck, but I can build the type of deck that just has enough tools to last until later.
Yeah.
And then, and you can build your deck the opposite way
Walls,
and slow
baby.
it's pillow fort, that's what
Yeah.
they call it. And I think our playgroups were nicely matched in that area because we have Craig in our meta who likes to play a lot of Infect.
Right.
And Jimmy has a couple fast decks. And so, the Xenagos deck is very fast. And it just so happened that our playgroups also used to, like, stuff swinging at you for a lot of damage on turn 4 or so. So, we had enough tools to at least stand a chance against it. But I think that type of deck in a lot of playgroups would come in and just destroy them.
Oh yeah.
Because if your meta is just a little bit slower, you're just not ready for it. And that can happen. And don't let that frustrate you when you go to another playgroup and play with them, and for whatever reason your meta matches up in a way where your decks are just sort of getting destroyed. That's a good, just take those lessons, improve your decks, bring it back to your playgroup. I think I'm always preaching about people just, like, keeping perspective and, like, hey, you lose a game to an infinite combo, like, don't freak out and yell at the guy. It's one game,
It's one game and it's over, and now you get to play again. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if the guy does it, like, every
cares?
time, 5 games in a row,
Sure.
maybe you got a leg to stand on. Just, try and keep perspective. Yeah, it sucks to lose, but usually after you lose, if you just take one step back and be like, it was one game of Magic. How many games of Magic am I going to play in my life? Does it really matter?
I'd rather play more than less as well.
Yeah.
If it ends it faster, then all the better.
Just breathe, everyone.
Yeah, and like this is a format where aggressive decks are kind of hard to pull off, right? Like you got to have a very specific like you're either a Voltron style commander and you're gonna and you can get that off quickly, or you've got something like Xenagos, or you've got some kind of like I built a soldiers themed
Tribal deck.
token.
Tribal, yeah.
Just go after it, and like I was like, well, there's no one in our playgroup has an aggressive deck, so let's see how this works. An aggressive kind of little, white weenie deck, and it worked for a bit, and then everyone was like, I'm gonna hose that deck pretty hard now, and I don't play that deck.
That's
much
when
anymore.
you know also you're in a really good playgroup though.
Yes,
is if
absolutely.
you create a deck that is attacking from a certain angle that they're not ready for, and it has success, and then it continues to have success and continues and continues and continues, then your playgroup's probably maybe not super healthy because they're not actually adjusting.
Right.
Which means the people in your playgroup are probably not like, they're not going on Gatherer and looking for cards that like kill all tokens or cards that like, stop big creatures from hitting them, and you want that playgroup. You want the playgroup that's constantly evolving, and so that you have to change your decks and they have to change theirs, and that way it doesn't stagnate.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's one thing. I'd say our playgroup's good at a bunch of stuff, but definitely adjusting is something that everyone's quite good at.
Now, I wanted to talk about the quote-unquote mean quotient because I did feel like our decks were a lot meaner.
Your decks were mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you start wrecking lands, I think that's like, mean
That's true.
quotient.
That's-
Up,
yeah.
up
We
there
didn't
it
quite
goes.
go there, although
no.
we will
It could've,
occasionally.
yeah.
Our EDH Knights themselves will escalate. Like,
Yeah.
somebody will win and then somebody will pull out a
So
slightly
true.
better deck and
Right.
then they'll win. And then by the fourth game of the night, like everyone's playing the meanest deck they got, which has Armageddon and Infect and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I did feel by like the third game. Well, this is going to attack two things. One is I felt like it was funny because I'm analyzing the whole time, like, okay, what's their meta look like? In my head, I was just sort of building it based on what I saw, and I was like, it didn't feel like there was a lot of wraths,
Right.
a lot of
That's
board
right,
wipe
yeah.
effects, and so the last deck I pulled out was a deck that like it doesn't do good against wraths.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this is great because there's 4 decks at the table and 2 of them don't have very many wraths in them.
Yeah.
So that was a way that I sort of
Until someone drew a wrath, which was
and
That's
Jim,
true.
I still
That was me, right? I drew
Yeah,
a route. Instant
Yeah.
speed wrath. and
instant
you were
speed
pretty-
route, and I was
yeah.
like, I was gonna win, man.
yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
but that's another thing to think about. Like that's another. Like we think of our meta and it's like, oh, everybody's got wraths and therefore like you can only play certain decks and build certain decks. But when you go play with another playgroup, all of a sudden maybe they don't do that thing that you're used to,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden like a deck that wouldn't work very good works really good.
Yeah, you get to change your playstyle up too, because it's like, wait, no wraths. I'm gonna unload onto the board.
Yeah, normally
Yeah,
I'd hold
okay,
stuff
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Hold some
Yeah.
stuff back.
So how many? We had this discussion that night, but how many wraths would you guys say on average you have in your decks?
I don't think I have a single deck that doesn't have at least 5.
Right.
Wow, 5,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
What I realized the other night is that
I might have 1 actually.
I need to put more in, and there needs to be a Nev's disc in every one of my decks, because there's so many times when it's like if you aren't able to get rid of just, it's like you want Decimate, right? Decimate's a card we'll probably talk about in a little bit, but like you want to get rid of multiple things. Like if you can't actually destroy everything that you need to, you're probably gonna lose a lot of percentage of the game. So like I run like 3 to 4 probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
go ahead.
That sounds like more on par with what we have going on. I know that at that particular game, I think Scott was playing a Nekusar. You were playing your Xenagos, which only has like 2 or something, right?
I think it has 1.
Yeah, Scott only has.
Well,
Well,
Zach
green
Scott
and
has
red,
9.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
the best color.
Yeah, I saw you pull up Blasphemous Act once. I figured that was probably
and I
the
put
only
that in right before I came here too. So I was like, well, I'm gonna need one of these. At least.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
one. No, I have a few decks that have like closer to 8
See, that's so much, right?
because it's the only thing you have when you're losing, and you're so often losing in
Yeah.
EDH. Like if you sit down with 5 people, then
You're gonna be
80% of the
losing
time
majority of the
you're
time, yeah.
losing. Like,
true. It's
you know,
true.
and that's the reset button, and they're just so good. And so I think that it's probably a thing that a lot of people out there are probably running too few, I would say.
I think-
And those things work in every situation. So no matter what meta you're at, hey, if you play a deck with, a lot of little tokens or a few big guys or one Voltron-y creature or blah, 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 the Wrath works.
Yeah.
Right? So the only ones it's not good against are decks that don't play very many creatures. And even those, Narset, Jaleva,
Still good.
those type, you still need to get rid of Narset or Jaleva.
And that's what-
and a Wrath does that.
And that's what one deck you're playing out of the 4 that are the other 4
Yeah.
that are there with you. You know what I mean? So like it's going to be good. Literally like 4 out of 5 players.
And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but like it seems like our group plays less wraths, but then more counter spells.
Interesting.
That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe it depends on certain decks, but I think at first we never played any counter spells.
Right.
We didn't play any counter spells. I remember
Because
us
they're
all
not
putting,
good and limited.
I remember us all putting tuck
But yeah,
tuck spells in, like condemn and stuff like that. And then at one point, my friend Butler and I, we realized we'd taken them all out of our deck for some reason.
Why?
And then I don't know, because we were like,
They're so good
I'd
against the
rather be
gods."
something fun.
It's sort of a mutual decision. It's like, I'd rather keep playing more stuff.
Yeah, it's like
Stop someone else,
We're
right?
just, it's that classic like new Magic player thing where it's like, well, I can put more stuff in it though. You know
Right,
what I mean?
yeah.
But like eventually now we have more answers, and you're right, Brenda. We have more counter spells.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely have more wraths, but like still not as much as like you might look at a deck and be like, well, this could use at least another 3, Wrath of God effects. But we have that less, and it creates like crazier board states almost.
Yeah.
And the games are oddly enough, I think, a bit shorter because of it. Because if you can wrath and then like, okay, well now we're all starting back over again.
Yeah,
And then
wraths do have that
someone else
nasty
wraths,
effect.
and it's like, yeah. But that's the same thing. That guy came into our playgroup, our friend Nick, and he had loaded with wraths. And every game we were like, oh man,
What are we gonna do about
we
this?
start
Man.
3 times.
Did you guys
in
know
this
there was a
game.
card that could kill every creature on the table at the same time?
Just opened our eyes to so many things.
Yeah. I think the one thing about wraths that is an easy sort of trick to fall into is that because you're doing it, you're killing your stuff as well most of the time for cheaper wraths. Like when you get above like 8 mana, then sure, you're getting rid of other people's stuff instead of yours. But I think there's just a fear of like, but I built my board up. These are the cards I paid for. I don't want to just get rid of them. I'd rather win with this and not have to wipe the board. But
Yeah, there's fear of killing
yeah.
your own stuff.
Yeah.
I think people worry about downsides like that
it's
way
too
too
much. Yeah, you can't put an emphasis on it because it doesn't help you win more games in the
Yeah.
end.
You know what? I of course had that exact same fear when I first started playing and first seeing those types of cards, and was like, why would I want to kill my own stuff? You
Yeah,
know what
right.
I mean? But then like you never think of, especially when you're a new player, you're like, yeah, but I choose when this gets to be played.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll just hold back all my creatures. These guys will go to town. They think I'm falling behind. So generally in our play group, I notice this is the opposite with you guys though. It's like if someone's falling behind and not doing too well, they're stumbling on lands, we tend to leave that guy alone and go like, oh, okay, like but like we're playing that multiplayer draft that we did. I was like, I'm the weakest player here, so everyone attack him and kill him right away. It's like makes sense. Step on his neck. I get it. But like, yeah, so
That's where
so
the
you can
politics
just-
come in.
Yeah, exactly.
better
So you
your
can
life
hold
than
back
mine.
and hold back that wrath and play it at the right time for you.
Yeah.
Not to mention with EDH, you can often play a Wrath and then you have so many mana rocks or whatever else out. You can float all that mana before if you're wiping everything, or you just play stuff after.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is being able to recover from your own Wrath, or just like craft out your hand. Just because you draw a card in your hand and you have the mana to play it doesn't mean you have to necessarily play it. Like,
Yeah.
you have to. That's definitely a more skillful thing, is like learning how to hold stuff back at the right moments.
Yes.
One last thing I wanted to touch on, and it wasn't a huge issue, but I remember that Scott. We should mention Scott.
Scott Yamamura played with us.
Yeah,
Scotty.
who's also on the show. Sorry,
I think I like
Janitors,
Scott's
not
Space Janitors.
Yeah, he's is he the bartender or the?
Yeah, he's the
In the
bartender.
third season, we made him
3.
the bartender and we gave him a cape. So his
He had a
character
cape?
Yeah, he has a cape.
Kind
But
of like a
he's-
Lando cape.
A Lando
yeah.
cape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Oh
much a
yeah, he
Lando
was dressed as
cape,
Lando.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But he's the clone.
Which means
the
he's
clone
the
trooper.
smooth one.
Yes, absolutely. he
Yeah,
is,
yeah. So he had a Nekusar deck, which made him my best friend.
Yeah.
And but I did remember he mentioned at some point, he was like, "Man, you guys play really fast," and that was something I remember when I, back in the day when I was first playing multiplayer and with 60 card decks. I remember going to another play group and they just played super fast, and I was so like, "Holy crap!" Like,
Can't keep up.
Yeah,
Pressure's
but
there.
no, well, not just that, but just like, oh
What
man,
do my cards do? What does this
yeah,
say?
I need
What are
to
these
have.
words?
But it made me so much better because I would realize I have to plan out what I'm gonna do and think about that stuff, not just like sit there, look at the TV and then it's my turn and then look like
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah,
very
I'm
interesting.
awful for that kind of stuff. We do play slower. We always want to play faster, but
Yeah.
like even like speaking for myself, I just sit there and I will stare at cards and go like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that?
You guys
And
were
I'm like-
pretty good. I'd
and then I
say
have to catch myself and go like, just do something.
you guys were. I think you fell into the rhythm of it pretty early on. I felt like at first I could tell, and then by the second game, I felt like they've already sort of matched our speed.
Playing faster, it's better for everyone. You might make a few mistakes, but you know what? Mistakes make it interesting.
And you'll get better at it. It's just like anything in life. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
As you do it more, you'll get better at it, and you'll get better at sequencing. So it's better to sort of force yourself to play faster. And you're going to throw away some games as you're first doing that, just as you're first doing anything. But then that's just an investment for later when you're going to be able to play faster at the same skill level.
You're going to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd rather make my mistakes earlier than later, if that makes sense as
It
well.
does, yeah.
Plus, again, like playing your deck more often means you get to learn it better. You got to figure out what you don't like and do like, and what works in your meta. And that every little bit of information you can get about your deck, the better. Like, and then you can look back if you played fast and be like, should I have played that in turn 3 or should I have waited for this or whatever? I couldn't predict that was coming out, so I did make the right play. So it's always nice to be able to look in retrospect. And I think speed of play, paying attention to stuff like that is like very just helpful in the long run at the very least.
Also, a lot of the complaint about the format is just how slow it is.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, the things they dislike about the game or about the format aren't even, they don't dislike the effect itself. They dislike that it slows the game down.
Yeah.
So just playing fast alleviates that. So a lot of times if you're worried like, oh, if I play this, they'll get mad at me or blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're playing fast in general, they won't. Exactly. Even if the thing you're doing they dislike, a lot of times it's like, well, at least we're done with that game and we're on to the next game. You know, it's just that if the thing you're doing also you have to think about for a long time, then you might, you know, some people might get a little bit irritated.
Whenever I've asked people at like an F&M or something if they play Commander, and if their answer is no, it's always because I don't want to be sitting and playing one game of Magic for 2 hours.
Right.
Interesting, yeah.
And it's like, Willie, that's all I want to do. Like, I'm into that.
It's not the quality or quantity, man. It's the quality.
Exactly.
It gives me that same sort of feel you get with like a LARPing, what we were talking about, or D&D, where it's like you get to live out a storyline in this little mini universe you make per each game, and it's always fascinating. It's always interesting, and even if you don't come out on top, I find like watching a game and being the person that now knows what's in the other person's hand and be like, wow, what would I do here? Is almost just as interesting as playing your own deck sometimes.
One challenge I would give to listeners out there is maybe next time you're with your play group, just challenge everybody to play super fast and not worry about who wins that game. And just do that a couple times. I guarantee that will make your play group a lot better in the long run.
Yeah,
for sure.
It'd be really fun to like set an actual clock that counts down to an alarm for like
one of those chess things where you got to hit it.
Or like you only have a certain amount of time, or like you only have 15 seconds for each thing, and then it's on to the next person's move. And you're like, okay.
It'll just teach you to plan ahead, right? That's all.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
actually might be really fun.
And you don't do that all the time. You just do it a couple of times, and then it's like when people walk around with, you know, like you've ever seen basketball players and they're practicing with like a slightly over large ball, or they're putting ankle weights on.
Yeah.
It's not because they're going to play the game that way, but it makes when they play the actual game, it makes it feel like that ball is so much smaller. It's so much easier to shoot it, or they're so much lighter. They can jump so much higher. Like it's a mental thing. And I think you can accomplish the same thing. So something to try out anyway.
Yeah, just don't cast Warp World because that slows the game down to
But I love Warp World.
a meandering tower shell level of speed.
Also,
like-
try playing with oversized cards. That'll make the cards seem smaller and easier to handle.
I like that advice.
Can up your dexterity.
easier to read.
Yeah, my forearms after each game I'm just like so pumped. I'm like, oh god.
I got to say this. We have a friend who keeps ordering this one card for his Jorkadine Commander deck. Butler's probably listening to this. He has ordered the same oversized card like 3 times from this one website. He keeps accidentally ordering an oversized one, and it's so funny. He has like 2 or 3 copies of this huge. It's so. Just look at what it says, man. It's right there.
What card is it?
I can't remember the name of it because I think it might also be in French too. So there's another burn on him.
So he's getting all the
Well, you
versions.
guys live
of
in
the oversized
Toronto.
card.
Yeah. It's easy to order. We order
from the Quebec site.
face to face. So like, they have all these French cards. Anyways, it's a red card with like you get to tutor and equipment or
It
something.
has to be a commander, right? Because those are the only
It's
ones
a
that are
legendary
oversized.
character. Yeah, a legendary creature rather. I don't remember the name.
Oh, it's Godos.
That's it. That's
Godos,
exactly
yeah,
what it is,
barbarian. He's interesting. I thought it was like chaos confetti because he just kept tearing it up and you needed a new one each time.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oversized Chaos Orb.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
touch
yeah.
everything.
Touch
Yeah,
everything. Yeah,
yeah,
touches
yeah.
everything.
Short little story here. When we first playing, Chaos Orb was a thing, and so when I learned to play by spreading my cards out. So every land had to be at least like 4 inches from the other land because you didn't want a Chaos Orb to accidentally hit everything. It was the worst thing ever.
It's so funny. I was thinking
That's
about this
so
the other
stupid.
day. I was like,
Hilarious.
because why don't you read Chaos Orb for those newer players who don't know it?
So it's
It's
a
banned in everything. You
Yeah.
can't
And
play
it's
it.
on the reserve list, so they
Yeah.
can't print it again. But
It's a 2-drop artifact that you can tap it for 1, and it says if Chaos Orb is on the battlefield, flip Chaos Orb onto the battlefield from a height of at least 1 foot. If Chaos Orb turns over completely at least once during the flip, destroy all non-token permanents it touches, then destroy Chaos Orb.
So, in English, what this means is you hold it above the table, you flip it down onto
flick.
onto your opponent's cards, and whatever it lands on, whatever it's touching, it destroys that.
But
like
only if
whatever
it's
it's
made a
physically
full
touching.
flip,
Yeah,
it has
it
to
has
make
to
one
do
full
it,
rotation.
yeah.
The way you'd hold it with one hand, and then hit it with your other hand so you'd make sure it flipped once.
Did you practice Chaos Orb
Oh,
flips?
yeah. We would practice it a lot.
funny.
Try to aim it. But it also had to be at least 1 foot above. There's a lot of arguments about that. But then, so whatever it lands on, whatever it's physically touching, it destroys that. Which
like
by the
Magic
way,
wanted to
there's
be
no
Pogs for a
rules about
second.
how far apart and where your
Right,
cards
yeah.
had to be spread. So that's how we all started playing. Was just there's of course the urban legend about I don't know which player in some tournament takes the Chaos Orb, rips it up into confetti, and then sprinkles that down and destroys like his opponent's whole board.
That's hilarious.
It lands on his deck. He's like, sorry, you're milled out.
I'm unclear as to if that actually happened, but that story's been around forever.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
Chaos
Wizards'
Confetti-
attempt to make the game more action-packed or something.
There was a couple flip cards early on. I think they just hadn't. We were still playing for ante at that time, so you would before the game you would take the top card of your deck and set it to the side, and whoever won the game would win that card from the other person. Like they would own it from then on. So when we first started playing for ante,
Playing
and
for
of course
keepsies.
the first time somebody lost an awesome card, that was the last time we played for ante because the person
Why
like,
would
felt
you?
horrible.
It's so,
yeah,
man. I know they had to stop it because it's gambling, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Well-
I feel the same way about cards that make you flip a coin. Like,
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
that has no bearing in this game whatsoever. They're supposed to be these powerful
Like Goblin Assassin.
spellcasters and stuff. And hold on, let me pull out this coin now.
well, they want to have some randomized effects, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
You hate Ralzeric. You do not like that guy.
yes.
Yeah.
Flip 6 coins. Take
Take an extra turn for each one that lands.
I don't know
heads or
that
The
whatever.
only
Is that
thing
what it
worse,
is?
the
Yeah, it's
only
all
thing
6
worse than
coins.
flipping one coin is flipping 6 coins.
It's so stupid.
Well, fortunately, the commander that we're talking about today has no coin flippage at all. No, you don't get to tear it up. You don't get to do anything with it. But it does hit the board and it does impact it almost immediately because it is the one and only Xenagos, God of Revels. Now, is this post Planeswalker or pre Planeswalker? I don't really.
This is
Post.
post Planeswalker.
I think
my
he-
Vorthos is not on top tonight. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
my Vorthos isn't either. Did he become a god?
Yeah.
Is God above Planeswalker?
Yes, he was a planeswalker who wanted to become the god of revels. So that's what he
okay.
did. Yeah.
Well, I enjoy that he enjoys reveling. He is 3 green red. So he is a 6/5 legendary enchantment creature, and he's a god. And so this is the god cycle. There's pretty much gods in almost every color, 2-color combination, I think.
There's God in every
There
2-color
is. Yep.
combination,
And
and there's a
monos.
monocolored God.
Yeah. Which means he's also indestructible, but it also means that as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, Xenagos isn't a creature, and devotion is counted by the mana symbols in the top right of each card. So the colorless mana symbols don't count for anything. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. So he will double everyone at
Huge.
minimum.
Well, one thing.
One thing that he wants, yeah.
Well, really quickly, let's go over devotion just for those that don't know. So devotion, as mentioned, is it's all your permanents that are on the battlefield. You count up the pips, and the pips are the mana symbols on each of your permanent cards that are in play. So the cards in your hand, in your graveyard, in your library, in the command zone, they don't count. Only stuff that's in play. And so when it says Xenagos isn't a creature as long as your devotion to red is less than 7, that means that if your mana symbols don't add up to 7 and the colorless mana symbols don't count, so you need 7, like 4 green and 3 red, or 6 green and a red, however that adds up to 7, then he sort of activates and becomes a creature. But one thing about gods as generals, the best thing about them actually is that they're indestructible and they're enchantments.
You cast them, they're there.
Yeah,
And
you
they're there for
don't
the rest of the
actually
game.
want them to be creatures because Path to Exile doesn't hit enchantments.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the big thing about having a god as your general, is that an indestructible enchantment is really hard to kill. An indestructible creature, not as much.
You know what's funny is that even if you get your god commander to be a creature, and let's say you pathed it, it's not like a normal commander deck. If you path their commander, it's like, okay, cool, I just got rid of
put
the
it into
commander,
my
no
command
problem.
zone.
Yeah, well, guess what's in the command zone? It's out next turn again.
Right.
Now you got another one. Like you have to have another one, and is it a creature again now? So many times I've been in the position playing against gods and people against me where they're like, it's not even worth it.
Right.
So, so even if they have the answer, so many
won't
times
use
they'll
it.
just be like, well, you know what? It's just not even worth using right now. Yeah.
That's one of the things I actually liked about this deck, and when we were talking about being able to build it cheaply, it's because of the general specifically, because it is a general you can count on to stick around, and also this general in particular it puts the burden on other creatures to become good. So like, look at each creature. Would it be better if you doubled the power and gave it haste? Then it's going to be a better creature for this deck. Whereas like a lot of like commander decks will just need really good stuff cards to be good because it needs to sort of support everything else. This is a commander that individually benefits each card that goes on the battlefield, that gives you the option to say, like, this has additional text. And most times, Xenagos is not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's like a point guard in a basketball team. He just sits back there and runs the offense.
Yeah,
and says, like, you go in there now. Here's the assist.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, actually. What road does this lead us down, sort of conceptually, building the deck? You know, if you're going to have something that's going to be on the battlefield, you're going to be able to pretty much consistently have it. And what it basically does is double a creature's power and toughness and give it haste. So then what does that make you want to do? How does that make you want to build the deck? Do you want to talk about how you started to tackle that?
Yeah, obviously you want big creatures. The bigger, the better. And then you want to give them different types of evasion. So like stuff like cards that make everyone block a certain creature that you want, so you can get your other guy through, or just trying to give everyone trample is like the thing of this whole deck.
Oh, especially because you're in green, and that's green's evasion.
That's especially,
yeah.
yeah.
And red has
absolutely.
some trample also. So
yeah, and then you also don't want to be precious with the one creature that you have out, because Xenagos gives everyone haste. If this guy your big guy gets dealt with right away, then that's fine. Next turn you can just put down another guy, and you're in the exact same spot that you were 10 minutes ago.
that's what I found to be the real power of the deck, was like you're sitting there and you have like 7 lands and Xenagos, and that's it. And it's like you can kill anybody on the next turn. We don't know. Because you can drop a 10/10 creature, give it haste, and if you can somehow give it trample, or that, like, what can unless they can instant speed remove it, it's just really scary to be dealing with something that you're just not going to get a lot of time to respond to what it's about to do. Like if you decided to look at me, and I very well could just be dead.
Yep.
You know.
And it's a fun deck to play because, like, I was telling Andy this the other day. I was like, I feel like Indiana Jones when I'm playing this deck, because everyone's sitting there with their sword, swinging it around all fancy, and then I just pull out my gun and I go, here's 25, deal with it. Bang.
Yeah, that's really nice swordplay. Can you deal with a 2020 trample creature?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, let's get into it a little bit. So the first category we have here is just huge creatures. It's a great thing about this deck, too. Huge creatures in general, huge what we'd call Timmy creatures, not expensive generally.
Not at all expensive. All you need is a bunch of huge green things with trample, and guess what? There's tons of them.
Yeah. Thank goodness you're in the right colors for that.
And they're not the types of cards that get played in Legacy and Modern, so they just don't tend to be like super expensive, which is great because they're super effective in this deck, and they're not hard to get a hold of. Do you want to read the first card we've got on our list there?
Oh,
Andy?
Yeah, sure. It's a Ghoul Tree.
Ghoul Tree.
And Ghoul Tree is 7 and a green, so 8 total, for a 10/10.
Hold on, creature type? Creature type?
Creature type is Zombie Tree Folk.
That's what I'm talking about.
So that's a lot of fun. Ghoul Tree has the additional
Very whimsical
text.
zombie.
Yeah.
He has the additional text. Ghoul Tree costs 1 colorless less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard.
So,
very nice.
which
Cool little
goes
upside.
along with what you're saying, because you put out a big threat,
Yeah.
it gets dealt with, the next one gets dealt with, all of a sudden Ghoul Tree's pretty cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
then
guessing you're running a lot of creatures in this deck specifically as well.
Yeah, and then you're swinging in for a 20/20, and everything else in your deck is trying to just get that guy through.
Right.
So he's good. He's actually one of my least favorite creatures
all right.
in the whole deck, I would say.
Is this
Just
next...
because I don't feel like he does that much on his own.
He's just
a
big, that's-
dummy.
He's
that,
just big, yeah.
That if you don't have anything else out, then you're like, I don't really.
I guess I'll just hit
guess
somebody
I'll
for
just-
20.
Yeah,
It's
but then walk with a
interesting.
1/1 and
Yeah, but you're
whatever. Who
chumping,
cares?
right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting for this card specifically because it's one of those, when you look at the quadrant theory, not so great in the early game unless you're aggressively trading away, but really good late game when it's like, oh, look, I need to push through. I have Trample already on the board, and you just need to push through another 10 damage. Ghoul Tree cost me 1 green. It's
Or
like,
somebody
sweet.
just board wiped because
Yeah,
somebody
I was
else
gonna
was
say.
scary, and now you have 2 or 3 players with no creatures out, and you're just like, well, I'll drop them now and kill someone, or just half them.
Well, between the red-green ramp and the occasional board wipe, Ghoul Tree is going to often cost you, next to nothing to cast it, which is insane.
Yeah. He's kind of like he's got Delve, but you don't have to actually pay the cards out of your graveyard.
Yeah,
so
actually.
Oh, interesting.
He's a
Good point.
perma Delve, I guess.
Okay, so if you don't like him that much, I'm guessing this next guy you like a lot.
Oh, I
my
like this next guy a
gosh.
lot.
This guy is
I
brutal.
accidentally bought this guy again.
That's how much
it's
you
okay.
like
Did
it.
you buy an oversized version of him
No,
in French?
no, it was French. It was French.
Oh,
but it
okay.
was not,
How do you say Hydra Omnivore in French?
Yeah.
He's the omnivore. There you go.
Omnivore Dehydra.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't
Hail
know.
Hydra.
I'm terrible at accents. It's a Hydra Omnivore. It's 4 and 2 green, and it's an 8/8. And it says it is a creature Hydra.
Creature Hydra.
It is not a tree folk Hydra.
Summon.
Not a zombie
It's not a
Hydra.
zombie Hydra. Yeah.
But it's the next part that's really.
Whenever
nice.
Hydra Omnivore deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent.
Oh my gosh. This guy's a house because
So he's a 16
He's a
power
16
dude with
yeah.
haste when you've got Xenagos out, and if he hits anyone, he does 16 to everyone.
Yes.
not to mention he's also just 6 mana for an
just
8/8,
brutal.
which just is ridiculous to start
Already.
off with. Like
yeah.
this guy's a house in Commander. He's amazing in decks like Rafiq, where you can do the same thing essentially that you're trying to do with Xenagos here, which is just make them hit for as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Give this guy double strike, and you just win the game.
Yeah.
You could literally kill everyone in one hit with double strike.
Yeah.
Not to mention it deals combat damage to any opponent, and it deals it to everyone else. So if there's
you just
one
need
guy,
one open guy.
yeah, one guy needs to be open. It's like great.
I would say there's quite a few times on turn 6 where at least one person
Yeah.
is open to be hit. Because turn 6 is early enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe they got foolish and attacked just because nobody had anything out. And, if they don't know that deck.
That's one thing you can almost never do when you're playing against this deck.
Right.
You can't just Alpha Strike because like, oh, well, no one has anything super scary out, so let me just get 10 damage into one of these guys. Like, no.
You got to at least
gotta
leave
have
a
something
blocker or
back,
two
right?
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really forces everyone to play much more conservatively and defensively than I think anyone would really want to.
Yeah.
Here's a guy
I like
you
this guy a
played
lot.
and I was like super impressed with, and I hadn't really thought of him since Conspiracy. It's Realm Seekers. He's 4 and 2 green for a creature elf, a 0/0. But Realm Seekers enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands.
It's gonna
So
be a
I
big
believe
guy.
when you
Yeah.
played him, he was about a 26 or
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
The way I figure is like he's always going to be probably a 20/20.
Yeah.
and that's
Like,
without
if you think about it,
Xenagos
if you're playing with
bumping
4
him too.
people, an average of 5 cards per hand.
Right.
Probably.
And this is EDH, so some fool's going to have a Consecrated Sphinx out or
man.
Yeah.
or a Rhystic Study, and all of a sudden he could be like a 40/40 pretty easily. I'd say in our games that's probably more likely because we have a ton of card draw.
Yep.
So you drop this guy, he's a 40/40. Don't forget, he's got haste, and he doubles. So if he was a 25/25, he's a 50/50.
Jeez.
Yeah. And you have Nylea out there. That's
If you have
Trample,
Nylea, you
forget
can
it.
give him
It's over.
Trample, then you just
over for
somebody's
someone.
dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when you dropped this guy and he was a 26/26, and I'm like, somebody's dead. It's probably me.
But then you guys had 12 rats in your hand, and you guys were fine.
Every time we say rats, I keep thinking someone's just saying we have 12 rats in our hands. I'm
12
like,
rats
man,
in your hand.
12 Death Touch rats wouldn't be so bad at that
They'd
point.
have to have flash at that point.
Not to mention the other text on Realm Seeker is 2 and a green, remove a +1/+1 counter from Realm Seeker, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. You're also playing this with Exploration on the board,
Yep.
and that can get out of hand so fast because you're able to pump out so much mana with this deck that just having an extra land every single turn because of Realm Seekers it's ungodly in a godly deck.
And it's just a land. It's not a basic land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not a specific type of land. It's
Yeah.
any land. So any of your utility
Get your strip
lands.
mines, your-
Grab your Kessig Wolf Run with this. Like, it's insane.
Oh, right, yeah.
Kessig Wolf Run. Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that in a little
The
bit.
last big fatty here is the Nessian Wilds Ravager, and this card I also thought had a lot of great play when it came out. It's from Theros, I believe.
Yes.
Born of the Gods.
Born
Born
of
of
the
the
Gods.
Gods.
Born,
It's
yep.
4 and 2 green, so 6 total for a 6/6, and it has Tribute 6. And Tribute, the way Tribute works is as this creature enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice may place 6 +1/+1 counters on it, which makes them a 6 mana for a 12/12. And on top of that, when this creature enters the battlefield, if the tribute wasn't paid, you may have it fight another target creature.
So it either
And
kills something or it is a 12/12.
you basically go around, you look at one guy that has the creature that's like, that creature is really important to your board. I'm going to choose you. Do you pay tribute or not? Because the 6/6 will pretty much kill anything on their board if it fights it. So it's in most cases you're like, look, you pay the tribute, I won't swing at you. If you don't pay the tribute, I'm going to kill your favorite creature.
Yep.
So
You really have
which
them
would really
over
work
a
for
bell.
you guys because this is a very political card.
Yes, that's why
Yeah.
I liked bringing it up, was because of the way that tribute works in a political setting, you can choose the person and therefore get the best advantage. And, most of the time I'm guessing that you want your 12/12 so you can make a 24/24 with haste.
Oh, no question.
The amazing thing about Tribute in EDH with the political side of things is that you lay this huge creature down. You pay 6. It's going to either kill something or be a monster. and you don't take any of the heat for it.
Right.
Right.
They
If
chose.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The person that chooses, if they're like, fine, you get a 12-12, it's like, hey, don't blame me.
Yeah.
This guy
Everybody
wants
else
to
is
get
like,
a
dude,
12-12.
It's a big thing out there.
Yeah, everyone else is like, dude, don't give him the 12. But he was gonna kill my royal assassin. I don't care.
It's perfect. It's perfect because they look selfish if they do it. It's so great. I love it.
Yeah, that card. And then the best thing is when you played it, I think in our game, and you pointed at Andy, and he's like, "Fine, fight something." He did the right thing, and then you're like, "Oh well, I still have a 12-12 with haste. I'm swinging at." That was the thing. It was like it was still pretty bad. Like a 6/6 with Xenagos is still 12 damage coming at you. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
big
was
bang.
the best case scenario.
Yeah, you get spoiled. You get spoiled with this deck where you're just like, 12, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
That's not enough. Wish it was more.
So the next section we have is give them evasion. So this is usually going to be trample, and it's going to be cards that enable you. So now that when you're dropping a huge creature, it's not just doubling in power and getting haste. It has some form of like unblockability or trample, really. So you want to read the first one? This is a really good one.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
I don't think this sees enough play in EDH.
I agree. I wish
Yeah.
I saw more play in standard. It's such a fun little guy.
Yeah, it's
girl, I
it's
guess.
another god. It's Nylea, and she's the god of the hunt. It's 3 and a green.
She's
so
Artemis,
it's
right?
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's a legendary enchantment creature god. It is indestructible, much like the other one, as all the gods are. And as long as your devotion to green is less than 5, then Nylea is not a creature. And other creatures, it's just a blanket effect. Other creatures you control just have trample.
Boom. That's all you need.
And for
Got a
3
sweet
and a
little
green,
bonus there.
3 and
Yeah.
a green for the activated ability, a target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn.
Which essentially means +4/+4.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah.
actually. I think that's actually more useful than it seems.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, because all of a sudden later in the game you've got 9 mana and you're gonna drop, the what was the first one? The Ghoul Tree, and it only costs you 3 mana. So you're like, well, I'll just pump it twice.
Yeah.
And now it's a 36 power thing coming at you with Trample now because of Nylea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. You played her in our game, and again, we all looked at each other like,
What are you going to do?
oh, now he's got Trample.
What are you gonna do?
Now we're just absolutely dead.
Everyone's
yeah.
just dead.
Yeah, that's a beating.
Yeah. And it's also an indestructible enchantment. Like, this thing is sticking around. You have trample for the rest of the game. It may as well be like an emblem at that point.
Yeah, and it's a 6/6 when it becomes a creature, and it's indestructible too. So then you're still, even if this was your only thing, and you had something that was making this become a creature, then it's still going in for 12/12 indestructible.
Yeah, I think it's
Just
still
a lot of versatility.
Yeah, like you'd prefer her to stick around, but like I think it's fine to be like turning her into a creature and swinging with her.
Yeah,
no problem.
for sure for her.
Yeah.
Because she's not your main thing.
Yeah.
Xenagos, I would think you don't want to devote him because you just don't want to leave him open because without Xenagos on the battlefield, we'll talk about this later and how to fight the deck, but the deck is neutered a little bit.
Right.
So
and specifically in this case too, it's good to note that the monocolor generals only require 5 devotion to become active. So
much
they're-
easier.
So you can balance that where keeping Xenagos not alive but making Nylea go is something that you can actually work around.
And we should say the pips on the god card itself do count towards your devotion.
Yeah.
So Nylea effectively needs 4 other green
Right.
pips on
Yeah.
to be devoted.
Now here's one guy that actually adds 2 to devotion. It's Archetype of Aggression. He's 1 red, and he essentially does the same thing as Nylea. Creatures you control have trample, but he's obviously much more vulnerable than Nylea is to removal. He's also just a 3/2. And the other part of this text, which probably doesn't make as much of a difference, is creatures your opponents control lose trample and can't have or gain trample.
Which I think the archetypes are something that, at least in our play group, haven't seen a lot of play, and they probably should see more. I like
they're
that this
so
guy
good.
costs 3,
Yeah.
so you have a really good chance of dropping him and a creature, and then giving the other big creature the Xenagos bonus, and now has trample.
Yeah.
Like I think that's something the deck needs is the ability to sort of like sneak attack you with the trample. Not like Nylea is something where 4's a little bit more. You're gonna probably have to play her, and then the next turn play the thing. And all of a sudden, if I can see the trample coming, it's a little bit different. I might hold up more mana so I can do something. Whereas if
Yeah.
you don't have trample on the battlefield right now, I might be like, well, I have 2 blockers.
I'll be okay.
I'll tap out. And then all of a sudden you play Archetype of Aggression, play a big dude, swing in, and I'm like, oh, even if I block with my 2 guys, I still die because you have trample. Yeah, so I like the low casting cost on that guy.
Yeah, because I have the other the archetype of endurance in this too.
Is that the give hexproof?
Yeah, everyone has hexproof, and no one else's creatures can have hexproof. But that is that costs like 8.
8.
Yeah.
6 and 2 green, I believe.
Yeah, but if you get it out, it's
a monster.
Well, then
it is a monster.
Now Maze of Ith doesn't even stop you.
Oh,
Exactly. There's certain archetypes I love in Commander, and then there's other ones I think are just not as good. And the green archetype is, you're right, it's 8 mana to cast it, but when it's out, it's like, what are you going to do? It's mental.
You have to wrath. I mean, that's all you can do.
You have to
rat. Yeah.
Whereas this guy, I don't like as much because I think it's super vulnerable, and like taking away Trample with your deck, especially, you've got so many big creatures. I don't really feel like Trample's a big issue.
Yeah.
Obviously, you just want to find a way to give anything Trample. So
it's also a
works
universal
well.
effect, which is nice. So you at least have the option of giving it to everyone. And also, I think you want to have at least a couple of these Anthem effects in your deck, no matter what. Otherwise, man, getting caught out with just like some guy just has like 5 1/1s and looking at your 5 like 10 10s or 20 20s, and you don't have Trample, not a very satisfying experience there.
For sure.
You still get the deck to go off, right? This next card, Thunderfoot Baloth, is actually from the green commander decks, and I didn't realize how good this card is in a deck with a god.
It's another thing where they're playing with some newer cards that we maybe haven't adjusted to as quickly. And
Or just haven't
when you brought this
experimented
out against us, I was like, oh man, the lieutenants.
I love it. Yeah.
We totally forgot about it. We did the reviews and then we didn't really use them, and then we forgot about them. And you brought that guy out, and I was like, that thing is actually a beating.
I think you guys did say he was the best of the lieutenant.
Yeah, I mean, we
creatures,
said
which he
stuff,
is.
but then we didn't
well, we don't take our own, but we don't listen to our own show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did we say that? I mean, thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I believe you did say that
He's
this was the
definitely
best
up
one.
there
Jeez,
in this
What a
cycle.
fan. God, he's fanning out
It's
so
so
hard here.
embarrassing,
It's so
yeah.
It is a good.
Let's read them really
yeah.
quick.
It's 4 and 2 green for a 5/5 with Trample, and he has Lieutenant, which is again this is the C14 Commander 14. There's a cycle of these in each of the colors. As long as you control your commander, Thunderfoot Baloth gets +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and have Trample. So he's like a combination of the last 2 cards we talked about. He's giving everyone Trample. He's also just getting everyone bigger.
And he's just a big dude.
And he's a big dude too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he himself is going to hit somebody for 14 or swing for 14 with Trample when he comes out. And if you they can't destroy your big guy every turn. So sometimes the one from last turn is still going to be around, and then he's got Trample too.
You get a Ghoul Tree and this guy out. You've got they both have Trample. This guy's a 7/7. This guy's a 10/10. Which one are you going to pump? Oh, whatever. It doesn't
The
matter.
10/10.
You're dead either way.
Yeah, 10
right?
because
Doesn't
it's
matter.
12/12.
Doesn't even matter.
And the big important thing is you have to control your commander, and we saw this as a downside originally because like sometimes your commander's gonna get tucked or whatever. In the god deck, this is almost always being triggered because people usually don't main deck enough hate for this. We in our meta at least. So it's like Thunderfoot Baloth comes out, you're like, well, he's here to stay.
All right. This next one, I singled this card out for a couple of reasons. I'll read it real quick. It's Roar of the Challenge. It's 2 and a green. It's a sorcery. It's from Cons. It says all creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. But it has Ferocious. That creature gains indestructible until end of turn if you control a creature with 4 or greater. So in this deck, you're always going to have Ferocious. So you're always going to make something indestructible and then force all of somebody's creatures to block it. The thing I like about this card, there's a few things. One is it's an uncommon from a recent set. So it's super cheap and it's super easy to get your hands on. And it's really one of those cards that most people will overlook and not even think about trying to use in a commander deck. So I was glad you did. And I like the versatility of this card.
Yeah.
So what it does is if you happen to have 2 creatures, you can force through one of them by forcing all of somebody's creatures to block the other guy.
So probably kill a
Let's say
big
you've got
number of their
Archetype
creatures,
of
too.
Aggression and Ghoul Tree. Now all of a sudden you give the Ghoul Tree, the Xenagos bonus, so it's a 20/20. It has Trample because of Archetype of Aggression, but doesn't matter. And then you put Roar of the Challenge on Archetype of Aggression, and you attack somebody. And all of them have to block the Archetype, all their creatures, and you're just going to smash them for 20.
Yeah.
But the versatility of this card is, okay, that guy's going to kill me next turn with all his creatures. And I
20
can't kill
isn't-
anybody. So I'll just give my Ghoul Tree Roar of the Challenge, make it indestructible, and make all his guys block and kill the guys, and I can sort of mini wrath him.
Right.
And so there's this ability to use it in a situation on defense a little bit. And I like cards like that, where it's like, hey, I'll use this to win the game sometimes, but I'll also use it to save my butt sometimes.
Yeah, the one side of the board.
Because
wipe.
one Ghoul Tree is not going to help you against 50 tokens.
right.
But a Gold Tree with Roar of the Challenge might.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I really like that card. I think it's thinking outside the box. I think a lot of people would not use that card in a deck like this, but I think it's pretty good.
Not to
that's what-
mention, if you stick Death Touch on this card and you have Trample, oh boy, you're just machine gunning everything down.
Well, then you can kill all their creatures and them, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like another product of like building. Like I drafted this card.
Right.
Right, yeah.
It's just a regular uncommon from cons, and yeah, I had it in a draft, and then you sit around afterwards and you're looking at all your cards and like, well, I don't know. It forces you to think about them in different ways.
Yeah.
I think very few people that build Xenagos probably have something like Roar of the Challenge in. And going back through the history of Magic, this is an effect that's been around for a while, and there might be a better version of that. But I like the thinking of having that type of effect in. You don't want 5 Roar of the Challenges, but having one in there, I think, is pretty smart. And you can tell me, but I'm guessing when you have it, a lot of the times it's probably like, oh, I'm going to be able to do something tricky here.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that? Do you find yourself doing that where you'll get a new card maybe from a draft or something, whether it's from a set like Conspiracy or something, and be like, this might work really well in this one deck. Like I'll sub it in for this game.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you probably won't see it. It's 1 out of 100. But do you guys do that where it's like, this is temporarily in this deck. We'll see how it rolls.
Honestly, I probably don't do that enough.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I
one thing
probably
really like
should.
doing.
And I've heard of a good technique, which is you just make an agreement with your playgroup to just start with that card in your hand.
Yes, yeah.
Just like, hey, listen, guys, it's not like some combo piece. It's just like, I don't know how good it is, and I just want to have it this game. So, can I either put it on top of my deck just so I make sure I have it, just so I can try it? And, 95% of the time, they're going to be fine with it. So that's a good way to test it out. And yeah, I probably should do that more, and I probably don't. I mean, I do tune decks, but usually I'm taking 5-6 cards, putting them in, and then I'm playing that deck 10 times before I make a decision. But it's probably more effective to do it the other way.
Moving on to our next category is Pump 'em Up.
We're going to pump
you up. And the basic gist of this is like sometimes you'll swing for 25 and they're going to be at 30. And you're just not going to kill them. And you wish you could because that next turn is all they needed to end the game. And we find that so many EDH games come down to the one turn of just everyone dies this turn or lives. It's like, this is it. This is the one cycle. We've gotten to that turn. And so pumping up your creatures is extremely important. And I'm very glad you included one of my favorite cards of all time, Savage Beating.
Yeah.
3 and 2
this
red.
card is a house.
This card is bonkers in this
It's
deck.
especially in EDH. It's an instant for 5 mana, 3 and 2 red. Play Savage Beating only during your turn and only during combat. You're just like, sure.
Yes,
that
that's what I want.
Sounds about what I want to do. Choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. Double strike and doubling their power, which it's essentially quadruple striking with what you're doing with Xenagos. Or untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. And there's the wonderful word entwine on there, which means if you pay 1 in a red extra, so 7 total, you get to do both.
Wow.
This is a game.
Double strikes.
This is a game ender.
This card is crazy with Xenagos. You not only double their power and double strike with them, you get to do it again.
So it's actually times 8, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you have a 10-10, he's a 20-20 with Xenagos, he double strikes, and then he attacks twice.
Yeah.
So he's hitting for, instead
80.
of 10, 80.
Yeah.
That's
two
killing
players.
2 players. That's if you only have one 10-10.
Yeah.
That's not counting if you have a couple other dudes.
Yeah, because all of them have double strike, so it all adds up so fast.
We talk about this a lot on our show, is the ability of a deck to, out of nowhere, sort of deal a huge burst of damage.
Yeah.
And win you games you couldn't otherwise win. And this is one of those cards. And every deck needs a few of those cards. Insurrection type effects. That's our go-to for that type of effect. But this card is way more finesse. It's way fancier.
Yeah.
It's
Not
way,
to mention,
people insurrection and everyone goes, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
If somebody does this, you're like, holy crap, that was awesome.
Not to mention too that like entwining is one of the most powerful keywords in EDH because either one of those is amazing by itself. Like, what if you just what if you have a creature that when it deals combat damage, you get a Reckon enchantment? Like, well, I'd love to swing with him twice this turn.
And you can do it for 7. Like
Yeah.
that's not anything.
That's less than insurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, in a pinch, you just double strike one guy and you probably can kill somebody. Or, you just get 2 combats and you can. And there might be times where just the 2 combats will win you the game. Like both guys are sort of low and you just go boom, boom.
Yeah.
Really
or
cool
just
card.
Hydra Omnivore everyone. Doesn't even matter.
Really cool card. This next one was mentioned earlier. Do you want to read it, Brendan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it's called Kessig Wolfrun. It
Great
is a
land.
land from Innistrad. And so it taps for basic colorless mana, and then for X and red-green and tapping this land, then target creature gets plus X plus 0 and gains trample until end of turn. So it's an excellent way to sink your excess mana into giving something trample, and then just pumping it up, because every time for every mana, you're pumping it by 2, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah, because Xenagos is going to double it.
Yeah.
And it gives that trample word that we like. This is again, kill somebody card.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once Kessig's out, I feel like the deck is like, oh, I'm like, if there's 3 players, then there's 3 more turns left in the game.
So tough to deal with it too, because it's a land.
Yeah, and it plays on something we've talked about the format, which is, there are a lot of land destruction cards in the game, but people don't play them because it's just gotten so much publicity as like the feel bads and the things that people don't like about Commander, and so people are really hesitant to run land destruction. Mm-hmm. Most decks will have like 2 pieces, a strip mine and a vindicate maybe, and so you're pretty much in the clear with things like this. Like, it's going to sit there. And so once you get that out, every creature you play is getting at least a couple extra power that are going to be doubled by Xenagos. Yeah, very, very good card.
It's a monster, because also with Xenagos, not only does this give you plus X plus O, you're going to hit that plus X, and then actually Xenagos is going to add to the toughness as well, because it pumps it by the amount of power
X,
that it has, right?
Right.
That's just a little bonus from
Just a
Kessig
nice
that
little
you're not
bonus.
usually getting from Kessig Wolfrun, right?
Yeah, good point. The next card, I like this card, and it's something that we talk about a lot with Commander decks. This is Ogre Battle Driver. So it's 2 and 2 red for a 3/3. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gets +2 +0 and gains haste until end of turn. So
Pretty good.
yeah, so
Especially
you
if
might
you're trying to
think
kill.
this is the type of card a lot of people wouldn't put in a deck like this, and I think they'd be wrong not to. So again, you're smart, Brendan. What it does is it covers you for those moments when they do deal with Xenagos. Mm-hmm. We talk about this all the time, Jimmy, which is like, can your deck function without its commander? Does it have a chance to still do stuff? And you want a couple cards that simulate the effect of your general, because, listen, games just don't go how we want them to. People chaos warp your commander and put it somewhere in your deck and you can't find it. And if that happens, like, you still want to be able to win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going to play a creature with no haste that's big and just hope that he's still around next turn, it's probably not going to happen. So Ogre Battle Driver turns your deck back on.
I love Ogre Battle Driver.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of my favorite Commander cards, and it's something that, you're right, it doesn't see a ton of play. It was from a pretty recent set, right? It's like
M14.
It gives everyone haste, and it gives them +2 +0, and I have it in a Mail, the Anima deck, and it's just a horse.
Yeah.
It's an absolute horse. And yeah, like, if you don't want to spend the, I don't know, $5 on anger, you just get yourself an Ogre Battle Driver, and it's amazing. I love it. One of my favorite cards.
It also pumps the power. So even if Xenagos is out, it's not like it does nothing.
No.
Yeah.
You're getting 4, basically.
Yeah. So it's still good even if Xenagos is out. And I would guess most of the time you probably hold it unless you really need it, just in case Xenagos goes away. But
And don't forget, like, Xenagos only gives 1 creature haste.
Yeah, true.
So you get this guy out, you drop again, you drop your
Drop 2
Hydra
things.
Omnivore and your 10/10. It's like, oh, well, which one will I pump? Which one? They both get haste. Okay. You know what I mean?
Go to town in that case. Yeah, I think haste is really important in this deck too, because the ability to alpha strike out of nowhere is also important, because
Huge.
you get wiped and you don't have a haste generator, you get something like this out there, then you're able to, be like, hey, guess what? You shouldn't have attacked with everyone but 1 creature, because I'm able to kill you. I just want that 1 extra damage or whatever. And being able to do that with the surprise effect of haste is very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last card in this category of Pump 'em Up is Enlarge. It's 3 and 2 green for a sorcery. It says target creature gets +7/+7 and gains trample until end of turn. It must be blocked this turn of Fable.
Guess what? It's getting blocked anyway.
Well,
so.
I mean, yeah. Otherwise, they're going to die, and they're probably going to die anyway.
Yeah.
I like effects like this because just the ability to do this in your playgroup, they've seen you play Enlarge a couple times. Now they have to factor that into their calculations every time. So now they're looking at your board and they have to do so much math.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't have Enlarge, it's going to give you extra turns. Like, they're going to be like, well, I could attack him, but if he has Enlarge, I'm dead. So I just can't attack him. So then they don't attack you, but you don't even have Enlarge. And if they attack you, you're going to lose in 2 turns. But now that they have to worry about Enlarge, you got 2 extra turns out of it. Now you might draw Enlarge and kill him, or you might draw something else. So I like these type of effects that don't sit on the board. You can't see.
Yeah.
There are cards that add instant speed that do similar type stuff. Those are good too. It's good to have one or two of those. I don't think you need a ton because you don't want to be drawing not creatures.
Right.
Yeah. And Xenagos pumps the guy at the beginning of combat too. So even playing this, if this was an instant, then playing it like mid combat, you're not getting
The full bonus.
You're not getting the full bonus of it.
So you're almost going to want to just play your instant before combat anyway.
Yeah.
Because you want Xenagos to double it.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a really good point.
I was going to say that normally you'd be like, well, enlarge, at sorcery speed, it might leave you to some instant speed removal or something. You might get a little hosed on it, but it's not like you're wasting Xenagos' ability if that does happen.
Right.
Because you're going to pump this guy with enlarge, like, oh, no, I path it, peace, it's gone. But then it's like, okay, well, combat, I'll pump this other guy with Xenagos. And
right.
It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I did nothing then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good, but it's not like nothing happened.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point. My favorite section.
Yeah, mine too.
The cards you may not think of. This is that one you've got right there.
This is the heart of
another
Yeah,
card. This is what I
love
love about this deck and about you guys and your decks were all these cards that I know I've heard of this card, I've seen this card, and then I totally wrote this card off and I totally forgot about it. And it's like that's a great thing about our format is like people are all the time pulling out a card where you're like, it's not like I didn't know that card existed, I just didn't really think about it, and it's like it's great.
It's just another card I pulled in a draft, not even to play in that game. I was just like, I think this might work in this other. I'll pick it and I'll deal with it later.
I remember seeing it in that draft and being like, this card's neat, but it sucks in draft, in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite cards in your deck, and I'll read it, I guess. It's called Might Makes Right, and it's 5 and a red for an enchantment. It's from M15. It's an uncommon. Another uncommon makes it in. And it reads, at the beginning of combat, on your turn, if you control each creature on the battlefield with the greatest power, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn, untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn.
You get to steal free active trees in every turn.
Every turn. Because you're guaranteed having the biggest creature every turn at the beginning of combat. And if you're not, it doesn't matter because you're not winning.
You have it. You have it. Don't worry. You have it.
No,
He
you got
always does.
Yeah.
He's got 10 10s and crap or 12 12s or whatever.
It's just an instant. It's just an endless stream of active treasons, and one active treason is not good in a commander deck, really.
But one every turn.
But one every turn for 6 mana once is amazing. It's
and
great.
a lot of times it's just going to pull their one blocker away.
Absolutely.
So it's just like you don't even care to hit them with that creature. It's just like I just want my ghoul tree to get in and hit them for 20. So.
Or they're forced to just block with like their commander, and they're like, "Gosh, I guess I have to at this point," and it sucks, but it's really it's so effective. And the wording on this is interesting. It says if you control each creature on the battlefield with the greatest power, it just means you can't be tied with someone else.
If somebody else is tied with you, then you don't get anything.
Yeah.
But this is the type of deck that can legitimately always have the biggest creature on the board. Yeah.
Another similar card for cost-wise is Warstorm Surge, which is also 5 and red and an enchantment. And this card is great for, I don't know, like token decks as well. But in this deck, it is a powerhouse because I think one of the big things we've talked about getting Trample in there, getting stuff like haste, being able to steal creatures so you can get a blocker get blockers out of the way. You essentially need to find ways to deal damage to people that may not necessarily be through combat, and Warstorm Surge is one of the best ways to do it. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So this does both. You can just dome someone for 10 with your ghoul tree, or you can get rid of their one blocker. Or you play 2 creatures, you get rid of 2 blockers, and you're essentially doing what the deck wants to do, and it's all in one nice, nifty little package.
Yeah, because I'm not in this deck. You're not putting down anything really that's less than 6.
And 6 is going to be small in this deck.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean a lot of times it's going to be 8 to 10. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. Another thing about
it also works with
Tribute
with what was I going to pull? Ogre Battle Driver too. Because
Yeah.
that pumps it when it comes down too.
You can
so
stack it.
too,
So and with the Tribute, I think it would. I don't know how that would work.
I think Tribute is it
an
enters
effect
and then it goes on the stack, so I don't think it happens.
Gotcha.
that way.
One thing I really like about Warstorm Surge too is like you're going to run into these decks that are going to do stuff like have Ghostly Prison out, or have some sort of thing where it's really hard to attack them, or they're going to be playing like Constant Mists, which is like a fog that I can play every turn if I sack a land every turn.
Right.
And it's going to be like, crap, they're just stopping all combat, or they've got Magus of the Moat, and you can't attack unless you have flying, and it's like, or Peacekeeper's out, and nobody gets to attack. And so Warstorm Surge gives you a new angle because that's not combat damage. So Constant Mist doesn't stop that.
Yeah.
And Moat Magus of the Moat doesn't matter. Like it gives you a way to win in situations where they have a couple of cards that are pretty good against the deck. Yeah,
I love this card. I have this in most of my red commander decks. It just so happens that it particularly fits with them. But I even think you can make an argument for this as just sort of an everyday red commander card, because if if you're creature based, you've got creatures entering the battlefield.
you might as well just be hitting people in the face.
You might as well be dealing that extra damage, right? Like, why not?
It's a good point.
And in any red-green deck, I think your creatures are just going to be big enough where it makes a ton of sense.
I pulled another one out that wasn't actually on the original list, but this is actually my favorite card in the whole deck. It's Mwanvuli Beast Tracker. Mwanvuli.
Did I give you this card? I think I gave you this card.
You might have.
I think I did.
It's an uncommon from M13. It's 1 and 2 green, and it's a 2/1 creature, a human scout, and it says when Mwanvuli Beast Tracker enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample, and reveal it. Shuffle your library, put it on top. So it doesn't draw it to your hand, but it does pull.
It tutors.
It's a
Worldly
tutor,
tutors, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's
also
pretty
a
great.
super great budget tutor because I remember you played this as well. I'm like, every single one of those cards are ones that I don't want to see on the table right now because of what you can do.
I don't
with
want
them.
anything with Trample. Like
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah,
at all
absolutely.
with Trample. And Hexproof is almost just as bad.
Not
Yes.
to mention you can just look up the archetype here and then give everyone Trample because he himself has Trample as well.
Yeah, so I usually pull like the Thunderfoot Baloth because it helps everyone else, and then it's like, that's the card I want to see that has Trample.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
You have probably the best equipment in here, which is Mage Slayer. It's in your colors. It's a red and a green, a 3-drop artifact, and you equip it for 3. And whenever a equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to defending player. So
It does get the Xenagos bonus.
it gets the Xenagos
Yeah.
bonus. It gets the Thunderfoot Baloth bonus, and it also potentially can also just hit them for a ton of damage as well on top of doing that damage. So it's kind of like a double strike that they can't avoid.
Yeah.
And it equips for 3, which is really nice. And it's always fun to just go like, all right, beginning of combat, Xenagos will pump this guy. No attacks. And they're like, oh, damn. Yeah, and then you drop that on. I also have, there's another card in here that has the same effect. It's called Burning Anger. It's an enchantment.
Oh, yeah,
Where you got to tap
Where
them.
you tap them.
It makes them do their power. It's those Mage Slayer, Burning Anger, Warstorm Surge, all ways to get around things that. Well, Mage Slayer you still have to attack, but if they have a way to stop combat damage only, it'll still hit them because the Mage Slayer itself's not doing combat damage.
Yeah.
So it's when it attacks. Am I right? Am I right there? I think I am.
You are right. You are right.
Yes.
You do need to attack with Mage Slayer, and it's
But you don't actually have to hit them. So
no.
a
They can
fog
block.
effect won't stop it.
Exactly. A fog
Yeah.
effect won't stop. A block won't prevent its damage. Yeah, no, absolutely. It goes right through. This is one of the first cards I put in my. A long time ago, I built a Borborygmos deck, and I put that in there thinking that, I put this on Borborygmos. It's going to do double the commander damage. And then someone told me, no, commander damage, only combat damage. So, burn on me there.
And then the last card, and there's a number of cards that have a similar effect, and this is Momentous Fall. It's 2 and 2 green for an instant. It says, as an additional cost to cast Momentous Fall, sacrifice a creature. You draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then you gain life equal to its toughness. Now remember, you're going to cast this after Xenagos pumps the guy. So if you just need to refill your hand, or you're almost close to death, or both, or you just think it's fun, then you can just sack your 24/24 dude, draw 24 cards, gain 24 life.
Yeah.
That seems pretty good.
Not to mention you can do it second main.
After you've hit him. You hit him,
because the
you hit him for
power's still
24
there.
first,
Yeah.
and then you do it. Yeah, and plus, it's always good to have an effect like this because you go to attack with your huge dude, they path to exile. You're like, I'd rather gain life and draw cards.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Or if they board wipe or something like that.
Yeah.
So, the instant speed is very nice there.
And you can even play it off turn because your guys are still pretty big. A lot of times, gaining 10 life and drawing 10 cards. You know, when they wrath on their turn is going to be totally worth it. You know, in a lot of decks, that card is not great because most of your dudes are 3/3s or 4/4s, and it's just not very efficient. In this deck, when you regularly have, with the Xenagos bonus, things in the 20 power and toughness range, then that card's busted.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We're going to move into the next section, which I'm going to call Command Zone Suggestions.
It's a new section.
It's a new
Woo!
section.
Very
so,
exciting.
yeah, we've unofficially did this. We've unofficially did this. Good English, Josh.
Yeah, nice
We
one.
done did it.
We done unofficially did this in the past. I'm going to stop that right now. So the first one, and it's staying with the theme of recent cards that are not super expensive, is Temur Battle Rage.
This card is just great. I think this
card turned out to be a house in limited.
Yeah,
Limited,
and
it's
and it
great.
can definitely make its way into so many other decks. It's so specific, but it's so good at what it does.
It's the type of card that in general we don't like in our format because it doesn't recur. It
Single
doesn't
use,
start
yeah.
but in this deck, it's literally like kill you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read it. Temur Battle Rage is 1 in red for an instant. It says target creature gains double strike until end of turn, but it has Ferocious. So that creature also gets Trample if you can control a creature with power 4 or greater.
You probably will.
It's almost impossible in this deck not to have at least 4 power because it's Xenagos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you can instant speed, give double strike, and Trample.
I'll take it.
That's the kind of card that you attack and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I take it. And you're like, you're dead.
Yeah. Even if you're attacking for 12 and it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take the 12.
Yeah.
Well, they see
24.
2 mana, they're like, what can you do with 2 mana? There's no like huge pump. Yeah, that's fine. I'll block with 1 guy. And you're like, guess what? He's going to trample over and kill you anyway.
Yeah.
And,
And
go ahead.
it's like I said earlier, it's the type of card that forces them to play in such a different way all the time now because they know that it's a possibility.
Absolutely. Combat tricks are rare in Commander.
Very
too.
rare, yeah.
So, and there's a reason for that. You know, you don't get a lot of longevity
Value,
out of
yeah.
them, a lot of value out of them. But, you know, 1 or 2 can really surprise people and
Yes.
can do that thing where, you know, I need to hit this guy for this extra damage. Bam, you Temur Battle Rage. That person who would have killed you is now gone.
Yep.
Think of it on Hydra Omnivore, too. It's just like,
Oh, my God,
yeah.
please, yes.
Yeah, he's an 8/8. I make him a 16/16, swing at you. You're like, okay, I block with this guy. Double strike trample. I hit
32.
everybody for 30 damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably going to kill almost
It's
everybody.
a quick way to kill everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen sometime if you put that card in, and everyone's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
Why didn't you block, dude? You killed us all.
Then I'm going to get up from the table. I'm going to throw my cards out, walk out victorious, and never touch the game again.
The next one I had written down was Armed and Dangerous, which is very similar.
I love these fuse cards. I
Yeah.
think they have, again, anytime you have a modal ability or you get to do extra stuff on the card and you get to choose or you get to do 2 things or 1, always a good idea. Armed and Dangerous is 2 half. It's a fuse card, so there's 2 halves. There's a 1 in a red half that costs 1 in a red. It's a sorcery. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains double strike until end of turn. Very useful. Similar to Temur Battle Rage, the double strike's really nice there. Dangerous is 3 in the green for all creatures able to block target creature this turn do so.
Now, the key point here is you can target 2 different things.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
you can cast them both for 6 mana total.
Yes. So it's the same idea as Roar of the Challenge and Temur Battle Rage. It's just you Roar of the Challenge to this guy and Temur Battle Rage to this other guy.
Yeah.
And so you can set up a similar situation where it's like they left a bunch of blockers up and you're like, no, you're going to block this little dude and this double strike trampler guy or double strike guy. He doesn't even need trample now. Is
Yeah,
going to smack you and
right.
kill you. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Sold. And it's another not expensive card. It's not even a rare.
Yeah,
It was out of
exactly.
gate crash.
One card that I have recently become acquainted to more because I've been
I
playing.
just
a lot
bought
with
like
Craig.
8 of them.
Oh, actually, are you talking about Greater Good?
Oh, you're not about to talk about that one?
No, I'm actually talking about a card I added to this list last minute, and it's
Oh,
Oh, I added a few
You
cards
tricked
too,
me.
Jimmy.
Okay, all right.
the yeah. It's the Chariot of Victory, which is a Journey into Nyx equipment. And the big thing about this is it costs 3 to put down, but the big one is equip 1. And it gives 3 things that I think every EDH deck is always like frothing at the mouth to get, which is equipped creature has first strike, trample, and haste. You have all 3 of those things for 1 mana to equip it onto a creature, and like I feel like in this deck there are enough creatures that want that. Or, you know, because I think Xenagos giving 1 creature haste is nice. Being able to just swing on to someone else and just give 2 creatures going at the same time feels like it's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing this card during this draft format and being like, it's pretty good. It's not great in this limited format, but I feel like there's a bunch of commander decks that want this, and I think we found one here.
Yeah.
it's
never ended up
another
picking
card that replaces Xenagos' effect also,
Yes,
which I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
you know, you might want
Always
1 or 2 more of
important.
those. The next card that I prematurely spoke of, and
It's
now
also
I actually
Craig
will-
has
Yeah.
forced us to both get Chariot of
I
Victories.
had a
and
couple
this
of
card.
these, but you know, I just bought a ton of them because they're just super useful. Now, this one's not as cheap as the other
This
ones.
is an
I think
expensive
it's-
card.
It's
Yeah.
not super expensive. I think it's in the $7 range. I think. Am I right?
$7.
$7?
$7?
Yeah.
Please.
Oh,
So
boy.
it may not be with
I'd
our
rather
theme up
I'd
till
rather
now,
buy lunch.
but it is very good. It's actually greater good.
Yeah.
It's 2 and 2 green for an enchantment. It says sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. So it's the same effect as Momentous Fall, kind of. It doesn't give you the life, and you have to discard 3. Boohoo! You're drawing 24. You're gonna have to discard anyway.
Right.
But you can also do. It's just an effect that stays on the table, and you can do it at any time.
And this actually goes really nice with the Might Makes Right because you can just steal their guy. Oh,
Exactly.
your guy.
Exactly.
Draw cards.
Yep. Yeah.
Not to mention,
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I know the price tag. It's probably like literally as expensive as a fourth of the deck. But
I'll never own it. I will never own this card.
Oh man, you and me, we're on the same page, but
you're gonna have to draft. What set is this, Jimmy? 9th edition?
9th edition, yeah.
To get it.
okay,
No problem.
no problem. We'll just start buying some 9th edition packs. That's all.
Well, the cool thing too about this is that not all decks are equipped to make full use of this. You need green fatties or just giant creatures, because discarding the 3 cards, like say you sack a creature to draw 2 cards because it's a 2/2 and you discard 3 cards. It's like, well, not as
doesn't do
effective.
anything.
If your hand's loaded, sure, like you just want more cards in your hand, but it's also like, I think the ability to discard cards is always underrated, because you have cards like Wonder or Anger or things that want to be in your Genesis, that want to be in your recycling bin.
Yeah.
I call it recycling bin because
Recycling bin, because
think
it's
about
coming out.
It's coming out.
Yeah,
It's
Just
coming back out.
environmentally conscious.
Yeah, precisely. So Greater Good is great. It's also just like, someone blocks your guy and like, oh, they're going to path it. Now I'm just going to draw some cards instead.
Yeah, we've talked about this many times. Just having a sack outlet on the table, even if it did nothing else.
Yeah, it
stops
sack.
your guy from getting maybe tucked when he would have. It stops like them getting some effect, because there's a lot of things where they kill your guy and do something else, and if you take the target away, they don't even get the added bonus.
Yeah.
So it's just very good to have a sack outlet. Now this one just happens to draw you a ton of cards, maybe upwards of 20 in this deck. So it's just awesome anyway. So yeah, I would say it's an expensive one for what we're trying to do here, which is build a cheap deck, but it may or may not be worth it.
You can splurge on 1 or 2. You
Maybe
know what I mean? Let's be
Brendan,
honest. You can splurge on 1 or 2.
I might have an extra one for
I
you.
just want to say,
accept.
I just
I
want to say
accept.
the weirdest thing about this card is that the flavor text is a quote from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
It is.
Which you don't see a lot of real world
Oh,
references
yeah, that's true.
on Magic
They
cards.
used to do it more often.
Yeah.
right?
I know they
like
used-
Arabian Nights is all
And-
actual.
yeah, and there's some Shakespeare quotes I know
Yeah.
on a couple, but it's just a
Well,
shitty
now I
thing
have to
see
read
now.
it.
Yeah, what
says,
is it?
To examine the causes of life, we must first have recourse to death.
Yeah.
To examine the causes of life, we must first have recourse to death.
To examine the courses of life, we first must have recause to. Oh crap! It's.
Let's all read it and try and make our own sense.
Mary Shelley was smart, man. I can't.
She's smart.
exactly.
Use different
She
words.
used smart words.
Yeah.
I added one.
Yeah, do it.
You guys mind? Okay,
Oh,
I
go
added
for it.
one. I think would be great. It's called Strionic Resonator.
Oh yes.
And it's another kind of more of a recent card. And what it is it's an artifact.
This is a good idea.
Yeah, this is an excellent idea.
It's a 2-mana artifact, colorless, of course. And the text is pay 2 colorless and tap it. Copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Who are you going to use this on, though?
So what
right.
would we ever use that? You know what I mean? What triggered abilities do we have? Well, obviously, Xenagos, that is a triggered ability. So if you have the guy you hasted and pumped last turn, and now you've played your new guy and you want to haste and pump him, well, guess what? You can do 2.
Everyone's invited to this party.
You can just do the same guy.
Just double up.
Sure.
So
that
now
too.
you're doubling the guy that got doubled.
Of
So
course.
now you're quadrupling. So if
Lots
he's
of
10, he's
flexibility.
20, then he's 40.
That's even
Yeah.
better, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
you're opening
Depends
yourself
on-
up to like a removal spell,
Yeah.
maybe. So
Yeah.
like, I like the like.
If you want to
it works
swing at
either
2
way.
people and kill 2 people at once, you might need to do it to
Yeah.
someone else. Yeah.
That's
You know,
a
if you want to
really
just kill
good-
2 people,
Listen, I think the base power of a deck is, or not the base, but the max power of the deck is literally when everything comes together. Can you literally kill everyone at the table at
Yeah.
once? And
Yeah.
you need a few cards that can do it, because you're just going to be in situations where like I'm at 3 life.
yeah.
And I can take somebody with me, but can I take all 3 guys with me?
Yeah.
You know, you just want to have that possibility.
This is something that
without
helps you
going
do that.
infinite. Listen, in some Playgroups, ours included. Infinite's fine, but in some it's not. But yes, I
the
like that
Resonator's
Strionic
great,
Resonator. That's
yeah.
a really good call.
It's a great card in a lot of EDH decks. Basically, take a look
So
at this
many.
card, and if it fits in your deck, think about it, because it's
I
pretty.
have
I'm
it in a lot
legit
of-
gonna have to get that card.
That is
And
very
that
good.
one's not even that expensive either.
No,
you
super
can
cheap.
find that online for under $1 even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
look
a bulk
that one
rare.
up.
So another thing I wanted to call out, maybe the last thing I want to call out, is just the bestow mechanic. Because something
Right.
I was thinking about with this deck is, in general, you know, playing your second big creature when you've already got one out, unless you already have Trample, even if you do, is not as effective as just continuing to make that one creature big, but you don't want to open yourself up unduly to removal. So playing something like Nylea's Emissary, which is a 4-mana 3/3, but it has Bestow for 5 and a green. And what Bestow means is it's a creature aura that adds 3/3 to something. And then Nylea's Emissary also gives it Trample. And Nylea's Emissary itself has Trample. So what you can do is you've got a 10/10, put Nylea's Emissary on it, and now it's a 13/13 with Trample. And it's, the same as if you played your 3/3 off to the side of it, but it's also going to get the Xenagos bonus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then if they kill the creature, Nylea's Emissary jumps off, and at least you've still got...
You still got a Trampler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
You did
interesting.
have this
I
in
did
there.
have this.
Yeah.
I had quite a few bestow creatures in them, and then I ended up pulling all of them out because at 6 I was like, oh, it's 6 mana. It's gonna give the guy an extra 6 and his trample. Like that's good, but
it's
I was
not
like,
amazing.
for 6 mana, I can probably put out another guy who's like I can put out a Hydra Omnivore for 6,
Right.
Right.
and just do like way more. So I was finding them that I was like I had them in my hand, but I never really wanted to even do it. I was like, I don't know. I'd rather just be doing
I'd rather
something.
play a
I'd rather
big
play
dude.
any of these other cards or
Right.
these other big guys who have their own effects that come into the board and stuff. But for sure, a couple of bestow creatures were in the deck for a while.
They were in there for a bit. I remember
Yeah.
they were tough to deal with.
I think I would only put in the Trample guy and maybe like Boon Satyr. Boon Satyr
Yeah.
might be a little spendy, so that might go in, but because it's got flash and you might be able to get
the
somebody.
thing is,
Get
the
someone with Boon Satyr,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Flash, you're not going to get
The Xenagos bonus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
true.
right? So
Well, you
it's-
could stack in this round, but you kind of lose the an extra 4.
Exactly.
It's going to be
Yeah, yeah,
before blockers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be before blockers.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to get eight damage out of it, but 4 more might be enough sometimes too.
Yeah.
Quickly before we do the next one thing I wanted to say is I noticed you don't really have very many dragons in this deck.
Hey man, Scourge of the Throne.
I know you've got a
Right up
couple.
your alley.
Yep.
Scourge of the Throne's a good call,
but
actually.
it's like we focused on a lot on tramplers and guys on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got access to red, which is some huge dragons, and I mentioned it earlier in the show.
Have
the
you
new
heard
one,
of,
the
I am-
Lieutenant one? I think is great for this.
Yeah,
deck.
I'm very excited about the upcoming set too because there are quite a few red-green flying creatures, and it's exactly like
What's the green red? Atarka.
Atarka, yeah.
Atarka.
Atarka is a huge. It's a beast in this deck.
yeah.
Some of the dash dragons might be really good too.
Interesting,
Because
yeah.
I mean, I know you're already giving haste, but you're just not leaving it out there to get killed. So it's like I don't think you care too much if you've got creatures out on the battlefield every turn. It might be good to like dash out one of those big dragons. I don't know if there's a big red dash dragon though.
Is there a red?
There's a red-black
There's a
one.
red-black
Yeah.
one. I think the new set may have a couple of other ones.
I would keep my eye out if there's one big red dash dragon. It might be worth it just because.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's just going to be like you're just keeping it out of sorcery speed removal range.
Yeah, because he's a 6/4 with double strike, and he turns into a 12/4. No, 12/8, and then that.
A 12/10.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
It has trample though too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also has trample. You need this card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm very excited.
So let's talk about how to fight this deck, disrupt this deck particularly. Gods, like we've been talking about, they're hard to deal with, and they're a pain in the butt really. If you don't have something in your deck to deal with it, and it's like Perforos is out, the timer's on, right? Everyone set the doomsday clock to 6 because that's how many turns we have left, or 4, or whatever it is. And that's why we have the wonderful word called tuck or exile and things that get rid of enchantments specifically. So Chaos Warp is one of my go-to favorites for this.
Chaos Warp is extremely good. If you're playing
versatile,
red,
too.
you need to have it in there. It deals with almost anything in a
Yeah.
way that's really hard for our format to deal with. It's better than Exile because if you need to exile a commander, then they put it back in the command zone.
Yeah.
But putting that commander back into their deck somewhere, and like Chaos Warp, there's a downside. They could draw it, but the chances are really slim of that happening.
Yeah.
Let's read Chaos Warp really quick for those that
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
sure. So Chaos Warp is 2 and a red for an instant in red. And the reason that Chaos Warp is so great is because it's just not an effect you see in red ever. It's the owner of target permanent shuffles it into his or her library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So you're essentially just churning in one thing and then pulling out whatever else is on top, and hopefully it's not a permanent. But sometimes you can Chaos Warp something and actually get it back that same
I've
turn.
seen that happen like once ever.
Yeah, but most times like you're hitting a land, you're hitting a spell, you're hitting a creature. But for the most part, you're very happy to pay 3 mana to turn whatever that opponent has into something that's way less
Well,
powerful.
something like 50% of the time, they flip over their top card, it's a land.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, it's not their general, which their whole deck is built around.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't care what that card is. Even if it's the next worst card in their deck, it's still better than their general being on the table.
Yep.
And this deck in particular is very focused around having Xenagos out. I mean, if Xenagos isn't out, I'm
If he isn't
guessing.
out, I'm not winning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
You may
that,
not be losing, but you're certainly not winning.
Certainly
Yeah.
not winning.
So that's a good one. I'm going to mention Oblation really quick, which is just the white version of Chaos Warp. It does the exact same thing, except for instead of the flip the permanent thing, you just draw 2 cards, or the person who got their thing tucked draws 2 cards. So 2 and a white, instant. The owner of target non-land permanent shuffles it into hers or her library, then draws 2 cards.
Yeah. The upsides here are much better than the downsides.
Yeah, I believe that's in the white
Yes, it is.
2014 Commanders.
Same with
And-
Chaos Warp.
Yep, and it's just getting to the point with the gods that I think that Oblation and Chaos Warp are actually like Oblation's almost as better than Path to Exile now.
It's very good.
Yeah. I mean, Path to Exile only costs 1 mana. That's what it's got going for it. But Oblation actually deals with things in a way that's better than Exile. Like, Path to Exile does nothing against the gods, and there's so many gods running around as commanders right now, and they're so powerful. And
It takes Path to Exile and turns it into almost like a normal removal spell, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
There's a couple blue cards which I've been using in my decks that because our meta is filled with gods, we have our other friend has a Phoenix deck as well, right? So it's called Voidstalker.
oh yeah,
Oh, yes. Good call.
Now this one only works if their god is a creature. So if you can somehow like trick them into becoming a creature, Voidstalker is a creature, is an elemental. It's 1 and a blue. Has the activated ability of 2 and a blue. Tap it. Put Voidstalker and target creature on top of their owner's libraries. Then those players shuffle their libraries.
Yeah.
So
Oof. See you
you're,
later.
you're tucking. You're tucking something. The
Yeah.
great thing is if you're running blue and if you're running something with a lot of blink, maybe you can actually put
Stack it.
Voidstalker's ability on the stack, blink him, bring him back on
Yep.
your side, and then only your opponent's creature will get shuffled.
Well, then
in.
you get to tuck something next turn and
Exactly.
next turn and next
Keep
turn.
doing it.
Yeah,
Well, if
it's pretty
if
great.
it comes into play untapped, you can just do it again.
That's true. Well,
Well,
no,
it'll
it'll
have
have
summoning.
summoning sickness.
Yeah.
But if you have
Oh,
haste,
right,
if you
right,
have
right.
haste,
Gotcha.
you'd have to be able to flicker it again. Yeah, you could do crazy things. I think.
yes, it's honestly, I'm surprised I don't see it in more commander
yeah,
decks.
Yeah.
It's a great
agree
card.
there.
Yeah, that's a good call. The other one I'd point out is Utter End, which is just a card I think is just going to go up and up in value.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just 2, a white, and a black, and it just exile target non-land permanent
At instant speed.
at instant speed. So it's
Yeah.
Vindicate, but it can't hit lands, but it's instant and not sorcery. So people have been arguing about like which one's better. I think most of the time you just want both if you can. But Vindicate costs like $15, and Utter End costs 85 cents. So
Yeah.
it's
That's
just,
my kind of card.
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
You want to
So-
be exiling
Yeah.
stuff too.
now that's just going to deal with Xenagos for now.
Right.
But you can usually like he casts, Ghoul Tree, or I'm just using that one, but Hydra Omnivore, and then he's like about to go to combat, and you can exile Xenagos so that he never gets the haste and the plus whatever.
Right,
And then he's going to cast Xenagos next turn, but that gives the table one entire rotation to deal with this, or you to get ready or whatever, which oftentimes is enough to sort of really mitigate what's going to happen.
This just came to my mind, but you know what's a thing that they're doing now with the Fate Reforged and Dragons? Absent Advantage is an interesting card.
They have to
Oh, right.
sacrifice
Have to
a
sacrifice
an
an
enchantment.
enchantment.
Yep,
Yeah.
that would work. It would totally work.
And there's a
Erase
new
is
one,
a
yeah.
card that's recently. Deicide is another one. They put in cards to deal with the indestructible enchantments because up until before like a couple of years ago, there was not very many cards that exiled an enchantment because you didn't ever need to because they didn't really have indestructible enchantments. So
Yeah.
they're coming out with more. But I think, you want a card in your deck like Chaos Warp, Oblation, Utter End that also deals with other permanents.
Right.
Because you don't want to be like, well, I'm not playing against a god deck, so this card is just absolutely worthless. So I would steer towards cards that have like more versatility. So that's something to deal with the commander. The next section I would say was just stuff that stops things from attacking is really powerful because this deck is just going to try and hit you with 1 or 2 creatures. So we've talked about these cards a lot. I won't read them, but like Ghostly Prison, Propaganda, Collective Restraint,
Right.
Magus of the Moat, Peacekeeper.
Yeah.
They either people don't get to attack at all. They can only attack with things that fly, or they have to pay mana when they attack. Because this is a mana-hungry deck. Like, it's going to play a big creature, and on the same turn want to attack with it. Yeah. Well, it usually used all its mana to place the big creature, and all of a sudden, like, if you have propaganda out, a lot of times I notice you don't have 2 extra mana to
Right.
attack me.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
And that's the best case scenario, actually, because now he can still attack the other guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's like you're turning this thing that should be a threat to you into like something that's actually kind of on your side.
Well, yeah, the big thing is like if you attack someone else and you can't kill them, you have to keep going after them. And strategically, it's the most sound thing for you to do is to take one person out at a time instead of building, like taking 3 people somewhat down and having everyone just be angry at you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like Craig says, like, you gotta be like that dog. You gotta like once you got your mouth on the throat, you just
Yeah, you
can't
just
let
gotta
go.
go. You can't
yeah.
go, yeah.
Step on his neck, Homer Simpson.
Yeah. It's really just about that one like deflection, just moving it across from you to someone else that one time, and it's worth it for the rest of the game.
Once I'm really actually quite poor at that too, because I always take a big swing at someone and I'll go like, cool, swung at them for a lot. Anyways, I'll focus my attention elsewhere now, and I'm like, why am I doing that?
No, now you just made one guy mad.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is we see quite a few of these types of effects, and I've noticed that your deck actually deals with them pretty well. We've had to deal with propaganda a bunch, and you
Propaganda very prevalent in our meta.
very prevalent. So I've noticed that you sometimes, like most times, will only swing at the one big dude because that's all
Yeah.
you need to do, and paying the extra 2 mana sometimes
deal.
is not a big deal. It's
Right.
not like he's attacking with 10 creatures, right?
Especially if you're ramping the entire time as
Exactly.
Yeah, so it might be the turn it comes out. Maybe you don't do that, but that guy's still going to be out there.
Yeah.
and potentially the next turn you could have an extra 2 mana up because of exploration and stuff like that. You're pumping out too, anyways.
One thing that really hosed you in the game that you, Scott, and I played before we came here to play with you guys is I had a card called Azorius Guildmage out, and it's a hybrid blue-white. It's a creature. It's a 2/2. It has 2 abilities on it. One is like tuna blue counteract activated ability. The other is tuna white tap target creature.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Just turn
Tap
off your
target
big
creature,
dude.
and I just kept tapping
Yep.
Brendan's. Because it's beginning of combat, right? So it's
Yep.
before he declares attacker. So he goes beginning of combat. Okay, I'll pump this guy, and I go tuna white, tap it, peace. Like done. You
Yeah.
just wasted your whole ability.
Maze
Citadel
of Ith,
Siege?
Citadel Siege.
Yes.
Yeah.
Citadel Siege is a new card that would really shut down.
Do you have
this
to
deck.
tap that at combat?
It's beginning of combat.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this actually kind of leads into the next category, which I called just stuff that stops haste.
Yeah.
And just like Blind Obedience, Frozen Ether, Kismet, although that will tap your stuff. This is all stuff that means your opponent's things come into play already tapped.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just another thing. With decks like this, I'm usually trying to just stop that out of nowhere haymaker. Hopefully if you've built your deck correctly, once you have time to untap your mana, get everything situated, you're hopefully okay. You can keep a blocker up where you maybe didn't have one ready, or a couple of blockers, or you can like leave your mana open because you didn't know to before. And this sort of gives you that one turn where it's like, okay, there's still a big creature there, but now I'm ready to deal with it.
Sometimes you
that's
just
the
need
scary
that
thing
one
about
turn.
haste. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll just board wipe, and just like we'll push it to one more turn. So yeah, I think those effects again. They're just gonna halt it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna like
Momentarily.
these aren't effects that are like your deck's done, it can't do anything. It's just like, okay, we're just giving ourselves enough time to have a chance against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last thing here, of course, is just instant speed, targeted removal, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, anything that can get rid of like, all right, I pumped this guy, I'm going in all the way, and you're like, all right, no blockage. You're like, all right, I'm gonna pump him again with another spell. You're like, all right, boom, Path to Exile. Just like something that can just easily, just sort of like the swift, samurai sword just cuts off the head of the attacking enemy. It's like, oh, I'm safe, I'm good. Got rid of the one big thing that I needed to, so I'm good for now.
It's also really good against this deck because, listen, you're going to begin combat. I don't know who you're attacking. If you're going to swing at Andy for 24, I'm super happy about it. So I don't actually want to kill that thing if I don't have to, because you're just helping me. But if you happen to say, look at me and send that thing my way, then, oh, well, now I'm going to path it. So that's sort of the versatility that gives you. Is it like, hey, I'm going to just let you go if you're gonna wail on that other guy. But if it's at me, then all of a sudden
Then you hit the kill switch.
Yeah. And you can also use that to your advantage by just like show it to him.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, listen, do you want to do some damage or no damage? It's your call. Because the some damage just won't be to me.
Swords to Plowshares
See how he's talking right now?
I know,
See
right
how
now
he
he's
just convinces
great.
you?
Yeah.
We're not even playing, but I'm like, well, okay, I won't attack you.
Swords to Plowshares has the added bonus though for Brendan. It's like, oh, well, then I just gained you 50 life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
And that's happened before, and it sucks.
Well, another way to disrupt the deck, I guess, is just have Josh talk to you for a little bit, and you have effectively dodged it.
Next thing I know, I'm out in the parking lot. I don't know where I am.
Speaking of dodging disruption, that is our final category for this deck. Is just how how to get around these certain things. And I like the first category here just because it is really so important in just tutoring. Just being able to get the answer you need to stop something when you know it's happening, or you're like, oh, this person's playing these colors. This is what can really house me. Like, I need to get a way to get that into my hand.
Or just Xenagos. I mean, this deck is so focused around its commander that you don't want it to be in a situation where they Chaos Warp Xenagos and you might as well just concede. You want to be like, oh well, I can draw Xenagos, I can draw Worldly Tutor, I can draw Fauna Shaman, I can draw whatever
Primal Command.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 cards. Or that what was that one card we couldn't pronounce? The guy that goes and finds
Mulanvoli.
that guy, So yeah, you just want to have a chance to draw something that gets you Xenagos, you know, when it gets stuck. So I think that's the way around the Chaos Warps and stuff. The second is just mass enchantment or artifact disruption, because if they're going to be playing propagandas and blind obediences and a bunch of stuff like that, then you're going to want Back to Nature. The great thing is, this deck doesn't have a lot of enchantments. So Back to Nature is 1 and a green for an instant destroy all enchantments. Well, that's not going to destroy Xenagos, and you don't have any other enchantments, really. So all of a sudden, you're just going to wipe and enchantments are so powerful in EDH anyway, that anytime I've got a deck where I don't have a certain category, like artifacts, enchantments, whatever, then I want stuff that kills all of that category, because it doesn't hurt me at all. Yeah.
It's actually like another reason why, I mean, I know these aren't really the colors for it, but board wipes actually are a really good idea for a deck like this.
Because of your haste.
And also because of your general, right? Like, I have an Afara deck that's just like, I'll board wipe at any time because you guys all have nothing and I still have my general out.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Vandal Blast is another one. You don't have a ton of artifacts.
Overload.
And artifacts are going to be some of those things where, artifacts are the type of things that can just stop all attacks.
What's that white creature, that Archon? Blazing Archon or something? You just can't be attacked?
Yes, you can't. It just stops attacks. White has a lot of effects like that, so just being able to just blow it all up is can be good. Again, you want to be careful. We're going to mention all this stuff that dodges their disruption, but the deck needs a lot of creatures. That balance. You don't want to shove in a ton of this stuff and all of a sudden
hyper specific,
all of a sudden
situational.
All of a sudden your deck can deal with all these things and it can't do what it's supposed to do. Which is bash in with big creatures. So we're playing with 5-6 slots in the deck total here. Tutors are always good because they are a creature. Because that's what they're going to go find. So that's fine. But as far as mass enchantment, artifact disruption, 1 or 2, not a lot, but you want to have a chance against those things that could potentially just shut you totally out of the game. And the last one is just stuff that stops target removal. Your archetype of endurance is one of those. I think it might be worth it to put maybe one more.
Asceticism.
Asceticism, not cheap.
Creatures. It says creatures you control can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control. It's just been amended to creatures you control have hexproof, and then 1 in the green regenerate target creature. That's amazing. 1 in the green to do that to anything on your board or someone else's board. You have to play the politic game. It's pretty.
Yeah, actually, I've seen asceticism used a lot to regenerate somebody else's creature in exchange for another favor. Hey, I can save that thing, but can you do this for me? Sure. Yeah. Okay. So
hexproof is very important in this deck, and it's something that you really don't get as much in these colors, I don't think.
No.
So it is nice, again, like blanket effects. Asceticism just gives every creature you control hexproof. That's good.
So really quick, Brendan, now that we're wrapping up, do you want to tell us just sort of how this deck plays, what your general strategy is? What are you thinking while you're playing?
Mostly what we've been talking about. This deck plays really fun. It's really fun because it's kind of this throwback deck where it's Magic is kind of just, traditionally is okay, I'm going to put down a creature and then I'm going to attack with it. And then that's the way the game goes back and forth, at this very base level. And you just feel like you're going back and doing this very base level thing where, a lot of Commander ends up being with certain interactions. And can I get this engine going? And I put down these pieces and then I'm just cranking away and I'm churning this thing. And it's super fun to just sometimes just go back and go here's a big dumb idiot. He's coming at you. Can you deal with this immediate threat in front of your face? What will your gifts do? What will little tinkering do now? So it was super fun that way, and then it's just trying to put down big creatures, and then also 1 or 2 things like a Warstorm Surge or the Mage Slayer just offset
just to get it through
and get extra stuff in. And Yeah, it's really straightforward, basic idea. It's got one idea in it, really.
I've seen this deck either dominate so hard
Yeah.
that no one had a chance to do anything, or just like get really hosed and watch you just get frustrated for the whole game.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you get mana screwed, this deck
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah,
Well,
I've seen that,
most decks do. There's very few that.
I think
yeah.
this one in particular punishes you for stumbling because you're trying to put other people on the back foot, and as soon as you're put on the back foot and people are able to be like, all right, cool, like let's start picking off his creatures one by one, then you're in a bit of a more dangerous position.
I don't
but
know,
it still has the ability
But
to
it
just
still has the
strike
ability
out
to
of
like.
nowhere.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like Rocky, where he just gets
Yes.
hit a whole bunch, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden he just lands a punch, and you're like, "Whoa, what
Yeah,
happened?"
you can't like let up on Brendan when he's playing this deck, right? You might be like, oh, he's getting land screwed. Like, let's not attack him right now.
He's getting land screwed.
And then
he's
it's like
he's
he drops
ready.
one, and then bam, he's in with 12-12, and you're like, I only had 12 life. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it reminded me of just throwing haymakers. That's just
Yeah.
what the deck was doing. And even when there was nothing else on the board, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, nope, he could literally just kill these two people. Like,
Yeah.
if he just happens to draw, even with 0 cards in hand, it's like, well, if he just draws a creature that's 8/8 or bigger, then one of these two people are dead because they just, they don't have a creature and they don't appear to have any way to deal with it. I mean,
Yeah.
unless they have instant speed removal, they're just like hoping he doesn't top deck something. So it's a lot of good fun. I mean, it also changes the way the whole table has to play.
Oh,
which I
absolutely.
a
Like,
lot.
Yeah.
this general can like attract a lot of attention too, right? It's almost like Nekusar when you say it, like people will just attack you because they know it's coming, right? Well, you see Xenagos out there. It's like, I can't deal with that as a card itself, and then I know what you have in there. You must have a bunch of huge monsters.
Yeah. and it's not hard to get it going.
Exactly. So it can end up with you getting ganged up on early because they don't want to see these monsters come at them, right? I've seen that happen too. And well,
But then I
what?
just get Josh to do all my talking for me and everything.
yeah, and then it's fine.
Those are situations you can definitely talk yourself out of. I actually build my decks towards that.
It's true.
now.
You totally can.
I build my decks towards like oh, I don't need a lot of stuff early. I'll just talk people out of attacking me early. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I don't need any 3 drops.
We're on to you now.
Josh is all about those words, and it's helped him. But you know what, Josh? I was going to say this at the beginning of the episode. I see right through
Yeah, I know.
it. Or maybe I don't.
And now we do too.
yeah, there we go. All right.
It was fun to do a commander too that is cheap. Like anybody can go
Oh,
out and
right.
build this deck, and you can like we try and do this, but we've talked recently about some more expensive decks, and this is definitely one you can go out. And man, it was competitive with my Nekusar deck, which is probably a $2,000 deck. Like,
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Pardon me.
well, I mean, I didn't spend that
Excusez-moi.
amount of money, but it's got 10 dual lands in it. So how
Yeah,
much is
that's
that?
true, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like I had those from the old days, but the deck value is there, and that deck was scary. Like it literally, I don't remember if you killed me or
He
not,
won.
but yeah,
Brennan won
you won
the-
that game.
yeah.
So that like. That's pretty high praise. Like the deck can sit down, it's probably $50-$60, and it can definitely swing with the big boys.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's rocky, man.
Yeah, so I would say like this is a good one to look at if you're looking for a budget deck that you want to be competitive and
Yeah.
it's totally fun. So
If you're a Timmy,
Yeah,
right?
this
good
deck
one.
is
If you're a
definitely
Timmy,
gonna
this
do
is
that, yeah.
your deck.
yeah,
man.
it's definitely intimidating.
And you can build it dragon tribal and stuff too. You can
Oh,
just go
yeah.
any different direction with it, which is great. The colors red, green are also great for tokens. You can find ways of just getting stuff in there. That's just oh man. There's so many different ways to build this deck, and I can imagine one that just overwhelms in more ways than one. Especially in these colors.
The new set coming out too looks great for this deck too.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
excited.
absolutely.
because you're gonna
Yeah.
have flyers in green.
Oh my gosh!
Like
yeah.
normally that was probably the thing that kept this deck a little bit in check is like, yeah, trample is good, but it's not as good as flying.
Right.
Because flying is just like, hey, you can't block any of the damage if you don't have a flyer.
Yeah.
And looking around the table at any given commander game at any moment, there's usually you're lucky if never does every player have a flyer.
Yeah.
So-
Everyone's got their little tappy dudes that do silly tappy
They're
things.
doing crazy stuff and one guy's got a flyer and you're like, well, I just want to attack that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
All right, let's move on to the end step.
All right. That
This
about
is-
wraps it up
Yeah.
for us.
This is the part of the show where we talk about something cool outside of the world of magic.
Yeah.
I don't,
There's nothing.
is there something outside
Yeah,
of
And
is
the
we're
there
world?
moving
anything?
on to the end of it. That's it, guys. Yeah.
So, Jimmy, do you have a cool thing?
I do actually. It's also a card game, so it's in the same realm, but it's different slightly. It's called Star Realms, and it's something that exists both on paper and online for Android, for your phone, for Mac and PC. And it's actually built by Magic Hall of Famers Darwin Castle and Rob Doherty. And Rob Doherty also created Ascension, which is another deck building game. And this is essentially spaceship combat in space. There are 4. You essentially have a group of cards in the middle, and you have money, and you have cards that attack the other player. You have 50 life. You buy the cards in the middle, you shuffle it back into your deck, and you draw it each time. And you start with you start with 10 cards, and your deck by the end is about 20 or so. And you're essentially creating your own strategy based on what's on the board. And that's why I love deck building games, is because every single time it's completely different. It's built on what is in front of you, because that could be different every single time too. So it's really interesting to try and build a strategy for a game that has so much variance in it. And it's a ton of fun because you can also play online. So if you guys want to find me online, my username is JFWong, which is the same as my Twitter. And we can play a match in like 10 minutes.
Cool.
And it's great.
Cool.
You just sit down and play it and you're done. You can do it on your phone or whatever. And it's a bunch of fun, really deep gameplay. I've been playing a bunch with Gavin recently, actually, and he is destroying me.
I'm sure he's very good at it
Yeah.
because Gavin tends to be, good at these type of things. How about you guys? You got anything cool outside the world of Magic that's going on?
Well, you can always go to check out Space Janitors at
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
spacejanitors.com and of course at Geek and Sundry on YouTube. Look us up there.
Yeah.
Me and Andy just shot a promo video for Geek and Sundry for their International Tabletop Day, which is coming up.
Oh, right.
Very cool.
The video is all about the game Flux.
Excellent.
That's right. Yeah, we that was a fun time.
That was a fun time. So that'll be coming out. That should be good. Should
Yeah,
be fun.
it should be fun. Also, I am the co-host and producer of another podcast called the First Time Ever Podcast with Norm Souza, and that's my co-host and mine and Brendan's good friend Norm Souza.
If you're the co-host,
I know people have said this before,
You
but
should really have. It really
not
should be with
original.
Norman.
Listen, let's bring Norman here and have him talk about it. No, it's you know what the following is like. It's mostly like Norm had a podcast before, so a lot of people are left over from that. So really, it's like his podcast that I got him to restart again and make it only about this thing. Where what it is we take people who have never seen maybe like a really popular movie or something, and we'll watch it with them and then talk about it after.
Yep. And I'm actually coming onto the show
that's
very
cool.
soon.
Jimmy will be on the show coming up soon. So
my invitation must have got left in the mail.
Josh, I was going to invite you
just
next.
kidding.
Don't worry.
Josh talked his way out of it, actually, at the table.
My table politics. Like,
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly.
invite you.
Screw you, pal. That's how it works. But yeah, it's first time ever. Check it out.
You'll be on the podcast when you show up for season 4 of Space Janitors.
There you go. Yeah. And as always, all the links for all this stuff is in the more info box below on YouTube and also the show notes. So it's all there, and we'll tweet it all out as well.
And I actually have another book. I guess I read a
nice.
lot because there's a book called The Skull Throne. It's by an author called Peter V. Brett, and it's actually the 4th in a series. So I just wanted to give everybody enough lead time to read the previous 3 because it comes out at the end of this month. The Skull Throne does. So the first book is called The Painted Man. The second is called The Desert Spear. And the last is called The Daylight War. I'm sorry. Actually, The Painted Man was called The Warded Man when I read it.
Warded Man. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe I'm reading the European titles. It's The Warded Man, The Desert Spear, The Daylight War. Very cool books. They're set in a fantasy realm. I won't get into it too much. But if you've liked the other books that we've talked about, I know a lot of people read The Magician. Some people read Red Rising. I've talked about a few others. This book is definitely on par with all that stuff, so it'd be something to check out.
Sweet.
Again, it's called The Skull Throne, Peter V. Brett. And, you
Every-
you probably want to read the other ones in the series.
The covers to all these books look like magic cards.
They look like magic cards. I was just going to say
Yeah,
that.
straight
Might be
up.
a reason I was drawn to, although I bought it on Kindle and never saw the cover, so never mind.
But you thought about magic stuff when you were reading it, right?
Of
You're
course.
like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
There's like demons and swords and magic, and of course.
That's a magic card.
That
yeah.
is a
The
magic
Skull
card.
Throne cover is straight
Yeah,
up.
the
Yeah.
Skull Throne cover
Yeah.
looks like Anna Fenza or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely looks like Obzon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, guys. One more time. At Space Janitors on Twitter, at Space Janitors, at Brendo Halloran, and at Andy Hull-Bone.
Andy Hull-Bone. That's right. That's my weird nickname from our sketch troupe that we were in. So
We used to like to put bone on the end of everyone's name.
Yeah, so it's pretty good.
All right.
You guys can find their stuff at geekandsundry.com, or you can just go to spacejanitors.com or youtube.com/spacejanitors or youtube.com/geekandsundry. It's all there. The full
Highly
series.
recommended. Definitely
Yes.
check out this series.
Especially if you're a fan of Star Wars.
Especially, but even if you're not, like, it's damn funny. Like,
just general sci-fi.
just check it out.
is
Yeah,
good.
it's
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
So definitely don't miss that. I did want to say thanks to everybody who's been giving us reviews on iTunes. That's really nice. And if you haven't hit subscribe button yet, help us out. Hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you. You stole my line.
Oh, I did. And love.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to CommandCast@rocketjump.com. or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.